What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring everything fresh in entertainment. I'm your host, Drew Brumfield, and join with me again is both Randy. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic.
And Seth. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
And you should be doing good because we are here talking about Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. Been a very good time. Before we get into specifics on that game, I want to give a couple shout-outs to a couple different extra projects we've been doing. As of recording this video, we have just released a shorter version of our review. Me and Randy did that. It's a 4-minute review. It's up on our YouTube channel, so go check it out if you want some non-spoiler thoughts about this. On top of that, we've also released multiple shorts about Survivor. Seth, in particular, has a great short about a quick 1-minute review on Jedi Fallen Order, the game before this, and to see if it's still fresh or not. So definitely go check that out. It might be in the description of this, or it's in our YouTube channel. But Seth, I want to say again and officially, great job on that. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun to make.
Yeah.
It's been an idea I've had for a while, and I hope we can do more of stuff like this because, when we talk about like our fresh picks on the Fresh Podcast, some things they sour over time.
Yeah.
They get a little smelly.
I love that.
So
I love the
hopefully
food puns. Get a little rotten.
Yeah, sometimes things get a little rotten. Some things are just not as fresh. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that is still fresh can be a continuing series that we can push forward with.
There might be one in the works about a specific Mortal Kombat game now that that big announcement is happening. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about Star Wars. It's like we've never done that before on this podcast. We're talking about Star Wars, specifically Star Wars video games, specifically Jedi Survivor. This has been a very big anticipated game, the sequel to Fallen Order. And I think I'm just going to open it up with, just general non-spoiler thoughts from either of you. And since me and Randy did a whole video about our general thoughts, Seth, tell us a little bit about you. What are your kind of thoughts about Survivor?
I think it's a pretty good game. I really enjoyed Fallen Order when it came out, so I was also excited for Survivor. And I think in terms of like where they push the gameplay towards, I think most of it is an improvement. I think they're expanding on the combat. They're making exploration feel more interesting and meaningful in parts. So I do like that. And I think also I would probably rate those games similarly because it's about like what you're looking for. I hold them at about like an equal level because like while the story just didn't do it for me this time around, like I just didn't really care for as much about like the characters, and I felt like the story kind of got a little bit too big for its own good at times. I still appreciated what it had to offer. And there's a bunch of other little things we can get into, but I would say my main gripe with the game is I just don't think it was quite ready to come out yet. As much praise as I can heap onto it, unfortunately, some of the technical stuff is going to overshadow my thoughts on it, and all that's going to stick with me in the back of my head is, man, I wish this would have been held off for about maybe 3 to 4 months, however long it takes to get it up to snuff.
Yeah.
But I would say overall it's a good game, and I will say by the end of this year, it will be a must-play Star Wars game. If you're a fan of the series, you really should check it out. You owe it to yourself.
Dang. Taken straight from my own script when I did that review, because I'm pretty sure I said that exact phrase of it's a must play for Star Wars fans. But I agree with you, yeah. The big kind of elephant in the room, and I'm mirroring exactly what I said. If you go back to our Fallen Order podcast, I said the exact same thing. The big elephant in the room is the frame rate, the drops, and it's really unfortunate because outside of that, I know Seth didn't vibe with the story as much as his dog is barking at him. Clearly, Seamus is a big Survivor fan, but for me, the game is just such an improvement on everything. I really like the story. I like the new characters they added. Well, yeah, for the most part, I like the new characters they added. I like where the old characters got moved forward. Cal is becoming one of my favorites in the stars. BD1 is still my favorite droid. Combat's better. Everything is just such an improvement, and it's great. But everything gets so overshadowed because the people have such issues with the frame rate, and that's so frustrating. That's the thing that is like almost holding people back. I know other people have different issues with the game, but at least for me, that's what like really stops it from becoming like a 10 out of 10 game, like the Star Wars game that I've been looking for. And it's been really frustrating to deal with. But outside of the frame rates, and if that's something that doesn't affect you as much, this is a great game and a fantastic time. Randy, what about you? What are your general thoughts about Survivor before we get into specifics?
I'm the one person that played it on PC out of us, and I chose that form factor because one, I already spent entirely too much money building this PC.
It'd be weird if you didn't play it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have any of the modern consoles that it came out on. So I was like, yeah, of course I'm gonna get it for a PC.
It's your one option.
And also, later down the line, they released mods already for the game like a week after it's been out. They're pretty basic to begin with, but I wanted to play around with that, my third playthrough or whatever. But it just, as much as you guys were saying like, the performance dips and whatnot, and I'm not saying that they weren't bad on console, but my God, on PC, unless you were running, sorry, I'm gonna spit some PC tech at you. Like, unless you were running like a 4090, like a 4090, which just came out, and you were running maybe like an AMD 7950X 3D or something like that, like, the thing was just chugging. Like, especially while running through Pilot Saloon and stuff like that. I go on and talk about this a bit in our spoiler-free review that you can go watch. But other than that, I love the story. I love the characters. Cal is becoming a favorite character of mine, and Cameron Monaghan, his acting for the mocap for this, there are certain scenes that I legit cried.
That's Cal's actor, by the way.
During this game.
For those who don't know, that's Cal.
Yeah, he was, everyone was doing fantastic, but he has a couple scenes that, just got to me. So, again, play the game, maybe wait a couple patches. We're out on patch 5 now. I just played a little before the podcast. Still some frame rate issues, but way better than launch.
Yeah. I'd say it has improved. There have been some glitches and some temperature pops ins, but at least for me, I'm not the kind of person that I'm not bothered as much about that, but again, on console, it is a thing where it happens and then it kind of goes away, and you're just kind of whatever, it's a video game, you deal with it. And especially in some of the more sequence areas, like the opening level on Coruscant, and some of the later issues where it's not as much as happening. You're not in the big open world of Kobo. It's a bit of a smaller space. It does run a lot better, and there's less of that. So that's definitely an improvement.
Yeah, I think a lot of the technical issues does basically stem from Kobo, which you can definitely tell is the most ambitious part of this game.
Yeah.
I would also probably say a couple of areas like when you're on the Shattered Moon and they have a lot of things like the steam coming out of the walls and stuff like that, it could get a little intensive. But for the most part, the game does seem to run better when you're on the smaller, more linear Fallen Order-esque levels.
Oh yeah, for sure. Running it, in the more linear areas, it's smoother.
Definitely.
Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. So before we start getting into some of the more specifics, I have a little game for both of you, and anyone can answer this, but I have 2 questions for you, and it's about a little trivia from Survivor. So, first one. In this game, the second main planet you go to is the planet Jeddah. In what other Star Wars movie have we seen Jeddah?
Rogue One.
Yep.
Correct.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, that was the easy one.
It's just you weren't asking a person, so I didn't want to just
no, you're good.
jump in there.
I had a feeling Seth would get that one. Okay. And the second one, the hidden path this is not the first time we've seen them either. In what Star Wars, just anything, have they also shown up in?
Obi-Wan
Randy.
Kenobi.
Yeah,
Yep.
I thought Randy would get that too. Yeah, I remember that as well. Apparently, people pointed this out too. Seer and Cordova's names are actually what's written on the wall in one of the episodes of Kenobi. I didn't know about this till much later.
To be fair,
but that's
I think it's ran in like the Star Wars language.
Yeah, it's written
Yeah.
in Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like people were able to translate from that, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, it's not too terribly hard to translate. I mean, I definitely need like a codex thing next, or not.
Yeah.
I need it next to me, but it's a direct one-to-one translation in regards to characters.
Man, Drew, you said that there was going to be trivia. I thought it was going to be like something like insanely tough.
Okay, to be fair, you both are incredible. Like, all three of us are very big Star Wars nerds. Most of the stuff I looked up wasn't that difficult.
Yeah. Okay,
These were the only, like...
Did you listen to all of the Scuba Steve story? Jesus Christ.
Scuba Steve!
the Scuba stories. No, that shit took too... I'm sorry, Scuba. No.
No, I don't blame you. I skipped out of it. But
Yeah.
Randy, did you?
I did technically listen. Well, I might be missing one or two because I don't think I have all the fish in my normal one.
Did he get to the part in his story where he gets to Manon?
Manon. If he did, I don't know.
Ah, damn.
Remember,
This is-
there's something about pirates and like eels.
Yeah. Admittedly, I most of the time just tune out whatever the fuck he's saying because I
He goes
really
on
didn't
for
care.
a while. He talks for a lot.
But I will say this much though: the one time I did tune in is when he mentions Manon, because Manon is a planet you visit in Knights Old Republic. So that made me
okay.
extremely happy that they gave a very.
I guess, yeah, I
shout
could have...
out.
Wow, I skipped over the one that I would know. The... Actually, I don't know how to form this into a question, though. Of, like...
What other property has Manon appeared in? I guess.
Not that. It's what is the villain that attacked Tanalorr, and like what book are they from?
Oh, I don't know what book, but I know who they are.
It's okay.
Isn't it
What's
just
the
called
okay? Well,
the
Randy,
High
what's the
Republic?
era they're from?
They're from High Republic, and
That's the book. Yeah, the first book is
Yeah,
called
that's
Star
the
Wars
one.
High Republic.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is.
So that's why I can't
And
make it
then,
into a question.
Yeah, and the name of the enemy is the Nile.
The Nile,
the Nile.
yes.
Yeah, even though it's not directly, I don't think it's directly called out.
It's
is it?
in-
I know
it's
it is
in-
on the captions.
Yeah, it's in
but
the
I don't know if
captions.
they say the Nile.
Yeah, which are super cool. Yeah, and I could ask you trivia questions about that, but that has nothing to do with Survivor because I read those books.
Now, real quick question: are they called the Nile? Are they named after Darth Nihilus?
No, they're not.
Damn.
At least that hasn't been, unless if they are, that hasn't been revealed. Because
Yeah.
I'm only on like the third book, but they're not Sith related. They're scavengers.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Like they're not really related to like the Sith.
No.
The only reason I bring that up is they're called the Nile, and in Knights of the Republic 2, one of the villains you face is Darth Nihilus, who is a Sith Lord so powerful he consumes the like force energy of planets and destroys them.
There is
Hungry.
There is kind of
He's a hungry boy.
Okay, in that case, I'll say maybe, because there is a reference to that, but I can't talk about it because that would spoil the books.
Gotcha.
But there is,
Interesting.
after this podcast, remind me, I will talk about that. But we've been kind of on this tangent for a while. I guess also, and I couldn't get this confirmed, but the last thing I'll say, do you guys know what's Cal's canon lightsaber colors?
Orange.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that was the only one.
Interesting.
I couldn't find the confirmation on that. I just found a bunch of fans saying that, so I'm like, whatever. Yeah, again, I couldn't. These are the hardest ones I could find.
Maybe it's like an art book or something like that.
It might be, yeah, but it's
the only reason I don't believe that is because all of the stuff like the cover and all that always
it has them as blue. Yeah.
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 Which I guess you could say it's like, oh well, in the first game that was because that was the color of Jorah T'Pol's lightsaber, his master's.
And when
it's like,
he
yeah, but in
gets it-
Survivor though, he's also still using it.
I think also they don't do it because in a lot of the potions and stuff, if you have him wielding an orange, it can kind of look like red. So it's like, is that the villain now? What's going on? But shenanigans.
Star Wars fans are weird. They speak with way too much confidence on some things that I'm pretty sure they're gaslighting us.
Yeah.
Like, you saw like the Ahsoka trailer and all of them like, actually, this is what this orange lightsaber represents. It's actually weaker in material. It's like, I think you guys are just making this shit up. You saw 2 seconds of an orange lightsaber and you're saying all this stuff.
Technically, it was orange and red. Anyway.
Yeah, that's
red.
Okay.
It was a. Okay, we need to get going.
Yeah, we have
I'm
been
sorry,
spent.
Drew.
Okay, but speaking about lightsabers, let's talk about probably the biggest combat change in this game. And one of my biggest requests to enhance the combat was adding different lightsaber stances. And it's gone from, instead of just, you had one, and then you had the double-sided, and then the separate blades were just one move. Now, and I'm going to say, dual wield is when it's 2 blades, and what do you call it?
Double blade.
Double blade means there's a blade on either side of the lightsaber, so it's double blade and
The
dual
blades.
Yeah, and dual wield the second. But now Cal also has the blaster, aka John Wick, aka Arthur Morgan, aka look at the comments section on one of my shorts of everyone renaming that stance.
The uncivilized stance.
The uncivilized stance, that was a good one. And then also the Kylo Ren inspired crossguard, this big, heavy stance where you just swinging. It does a ton of damage, a ton of guard gaze, and just breaks people in half. And I think is one of Seth's favorites. But before we get into Seth's favorites, I'm going to ask for Randy's favorites. I switched you around. Randy, what's your kind of go-to... I'll ask you 2 questions. What's your 2 stances that you always go to? And what colors do you mainly kind of always attach to with Cal?
So I usually stick with the dual wield, so the 2 sabers,
Yep.
and then the double bladed.
Yeah.
Those were my go-to. My main was double blade for primary, because in this game you actually face generally quite large waves of enemies. So having something that can hit multiple people at once and stuff like that was very useful. And I mean, it just looks badass.
It does look cool. There's a lot of cool moves where Cal is spinning in the air and flipping it around. It has a really cool dash attack where he's like spinning it above his head. That one really changed a lot from the first game to this. It's like, okay, it's
Yeah,
a
they
lot
added,
more.
initially it was just like, I think before it was just a 3-hit combo, and then you can get an upgrade to a 4-hit combo, and then another upgrade on top of that changes it from being more area damage to a alternate 4-hit combo that is very single target focused. And you can weave that in and out, so you can go from area to single to back to area to back to single, and any variation of that within those 4-hit combo, basically. And so I really like how much variation they put in that.
Mm-hmm.
Still, with that being said, having it be dual wield, that was my go-to for like boss fights and stuff like that, and single combat, because being able to, it allows you to kind of cancel out of attacks into a dodge and stuff like
it's
that,
the
or
only
into
stance
a
that can do
block.
it.
It's the only stance that can do it, and for that you have less block meter, but in this game you can actually, there's upgrades for it in your skill tree, and you can actually get a couple perks that can help make that block meter larger to kind of counteract that. And so that was my go-to for fighting bosses or any sort of one-on-one combat.
Mm-hmm.
And color-wise, I always went with cyan. I really like cyan. It's not quite your traditional, like, darker blue that we kind of know from like Anakin Skywalker and stuff like that. This cyan feel more like like Luke Skywalker, which, I mean, to be fair, in A New Hope, he is using Anakin's lightsaber, but it's still that, like, light blue. Just
Yeah.
because, I guess, from what technology they use to make it and stuff like that. So I really like that cyan color.
Yeah, for me, I actually, ironically, I went the other way. I went indigo, which is not quite purple. It's not quite the standard blue. It's a little bit darker than the standard blue, which I like because that's like my favorite color. And it is different from just the base one. So I really liked using that, but I would also occasionally switch to the white lightsaber. For the sole reason of A, it looks really cool on certain outfits. And B, it also like lore-wise, kind of fits Cal's character more of like, he's kind of stepping away from like the traditional Jedi path. Like he is killing like 90% of like when he like interacts with like a boss. He is taking him out.
Let's see. Oh, there's nothing against the Jedi Order that you can't kill. It's like you're allowed to.
It's against the Jedi way. I shouldn't do it.
Well, when Ravis literally doesn't have a weapon and is like, kill me, then he's like, all right,
No.
well, that...
Well, hold on. He tried to step out of it, but Ravis picks it back up and takes a swing at Cal, and then that's when he finishes him off. He tries to negotiate with him, but like Jedi definitely they kill fuckers all the time. Kenobi cut off a dude's arm because he was dissing him in like the cantina.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So like there's nothing like against the Jedi Order for
Yeah.
killing.
But enough about Star Wars ethics codes. Seth, talk to me about your favorite stances and your favorite lightsaber codes. Because I'm pretty sure it's different from Randy's.
Yeah. My kind of go-to like lightsaber stances, you mentioned it before, Drew, is the cross guard.
Yeah.
One of the not always my go-to, but one of my favorite ways to play Souls games is just dump a bunch of points into strength and just wield the biggest fucking thing and just go to town. And it's just like, listen, I may not get that many hits in, but every time I do, you're gonna feel it, and that's why I love the cross guard. It's just so dead. It just hits so fucking hard, and the fact that it breaks guards like no business, especially once you get like the shatter perk. Mm-hmm. It just does a number on people. It's not fancy, but it gets the job done. I just love how brutal it is. And even though to me in my mind, it doesn't make sense why this lightsaber would be quote unquote heavier, so Cal has to heave and roll it and a bunch of shit. Like, even though that doesn't make sense, I get it. It's Star Wars, it's space magic, whatever. I think it's cool. I think it has some of my favorite like animations just because of just how like to the point and brutal like a lot of the execution styles. Yeah. Like whether he's smacking them in the face with like the pommel, or he just like trips them up and just kind of drops the blade onto them. Or like one of my favorites is like he breaks the guard, and then as he basically puts the blade into them, he punches down on the pommel to dig the blade even deeper in. Like those are like my favorite moves, or rather animations. There's not that many moves with the cross guard. Like I said, it's very simple. It's slow, but it hits hard, and that's all you really need. I also think that it has certain things like that gives it an advantage. Like it's one of the few lightsabers that can reliably hit a person when they've been knocked to the ground. Typically, when you knock a boss to the ground, that's kind of like they're in a safe spot because most of your attacks are going to miss. But if you do like the hold attack button attack with it that uses some force, Cal slams it down and it just does that little bit of extra damage while they're on the ground.
He has that
which is really nice.
Long poke after like miss one hit and then hold down the second. He lunges with that saber.
It goes fucking. It goes hard too. It's like it's insane. And not to mention, it probably has my favorite blaster reflect, which is basically and I think it might be the best one in the game, honestly, because it basically turns any blaster that he reflects back at an opponent into a power blast. And I found that more often than not, like unlike the double bladed, which you deflect every shot, but it drains your stamina quickly. Most of the time when you hit an enemy with that power blast, it stops them from shooting any further because if they're not dead, they're knocked on their ass from it.
Yeah.
So crossguard was definitely like my favorite. Not to mention that it's finally like the first time a video game was able to do it justice. I really like Battlefront 2 and playing as Kylo Ren, but I really, using the lightsaber as Kylo Ren didn't really feel any different than any other hero in that game, honestly.
No, yeah.
So I think they did a really good job and some really good justice to the cross guard. The other, what was the other standout to me? Oh yeah, the other stance I really liked
The
was
John
the
Wick
blaster
stance. Yeah. How did you skip this
Yeah.
one? I did a whole bit about it.
Yeah, and it's like I really like the blaster stance just because it's very weird. As in, it's not the strongest hitting stance, but it's the one that can put out a lot of like consistent damage and more importantly pressure. Because yeah, if you just use up all your shots right at the start, you're gonna basically be like, well, this fucking sucks, and then like the melee doesn't feel as like quite as good as like maybe like even the single bladed or the double bladed lightsaber. But I found that whenever the animation to shoot is so quick, you can weave it in between combos.
Mhm.
So I would constantly be like slash, shoot, and you could keep the whole combo going. You're striking with the lightsaber, so you're getting shots back. So it's a really neat way of just getting that little bit of extra damage you need on an enemy. And best of all, whenever you're dueling someone and they back off and you want to make sure their stamina is still staying down, you basically kind of keep shooting at them to like, you know, basically keep the pressure up so they don't just regen it immediately. So I really like that. Not to mention, essentially, whenever you get the point blank skill, which is basically pairing with a blaster with a really big fucking shot that kills a lot of the smaller enemies, you basically turn the game into Bloodborne. Because in Bloodborne, you use the gun to parry enemies to follow up with strong attacks. You're basically doing the exact same thing where you're letting enemy get really close and just blast them. So I really enjoy it for that. Those were like my two favorite stances.
I agree.
I will say one of the a little disappointing thing I have with the game is I do miss the switch stance combos, because those were always really fun to do.
That was kind of always my go-to combo, switching between the two stances, because it was also the coolest animation.
Yeah, it was, and like it's a shame, especially since like you can only have two stances at a time. I could definitely see them still being able to work it into the game. And also, one of the things I really like about this game is whatever stance you pick, I really enjoy that they had different animations to play out based on which stance you're switching from to. Because it's like because like obviously with the dual wield one and the double bladed one, Cal breaks the lightsaber apart and then he just brings it back together whenever he switches stances with it. With the cross guard into blaster one, actually very simple. Cal just closes the cross guard and pulls out his gun. Yeah. Like it's very straightforward.
I mean, it's not as the simplest one is definitely regular single blade into gun, because all he does is just pull the gun out.
That is true. He just like pulls out his gun, but like. I really like that little attention to detail, making sure that they have different animations compatible with that. And I wish they would have extended that into like some sort of like stance switching, because I think that's like it's definitely like a viable playstyle already. Like all you have to do is just press a button to switch and stuff like that. But it'd been so much cooler, especially since there's already a perk you can get in the game that rewards you more damage when you switch stances. So it'd be nice to have that little thing, but that's really like a nitpick, to be honest.
I agree though, because also I switch stances like all the time. Like I did have two mains, but I did kind of go between like the four that weren't just regular single blade. So it would have been cool to like have a move that would like kind of manually switch between whatever two you had equipped, but I could also see that being, you know, more work and another like pretty hard animation task. But before I talk about mine, do you have something else you wanted to bring up?
I mean, no, not really. I will say this much. I know we're all gonna be kind of like maybe talking a bit down on single bladed, because everybody's been talking about like double bladed, dual blade, and like blaster and cross guard. The single blade doesn't get much love. I will say that single blade is still good and very valid as like a play style, because I've gone through the game on Grandmaster and I tried out all the different stances during that playthrough, and I will say that the single bladed one is actually the most reliable one, just because it's the one that's like, it doesn't do one thing in particular special, but it's very reliable because it has a lot of like specific attacks that help like close the distance onto targets, do good like shatter damage. Also has really decent defense to help out when you're being like assaulted by multiple blasters. It's a good viable strategy if you want to do it. It's a little vanilla, but vanilla gets the job done sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. Very similar thoughts, but I think because it was vanilla is why it was the one I did not switch into. Because by the end of the game, I had all 4 other stances maxed out except for regular single blade, because all the others were just really fun to me. My kind of go-to mains were definitely dual wield and crossguard. Like both of you have said, talking about either of them, they're really fun. I love the new like auto parry on the dual blade. I love that you can cancel and have like double lightsaber throw to kind of deal with enemies from afar. It's very offensive focused. But in the same vein, the slow, methodical like crossguard stance was super fun. Seth, you are correct. Yes, it doesn't make sense, but also I would make the argument no lightsaber stance makes sense, because if the blade is actually made of light, it should be weightless, and the most effective strategy would be waving around like a madman in a flashlight, and you just randomly get a hit. So you just have to kind of accept the fact that in Star Wars, this form of light, for whatever reason, has weight to it, and you just got to. That's just something you have to accept with all of Star Wars, because if you don't accept that, then none of Star Wars makes sense. But the crossguard's a lot of fun. It's very satisfying getting those hits. Anytime I would go from crossguard to a different stance, I was like, that standard enemy actually took 2 hits to kill. I could have hit them just with 1 Y attack and sent them a mile the opposite direction.
The real man's way of doing it.
It was super fun. I love knocking heavy enemies down with that Y attack.
I don't need heavy attacks. I just need one big one.
But also, like, I have almost like an emotional attachment to the blaster stance, because that video has done super well on both TikTok and YouTube. And I will say that one might have my favorite animations of Cal doing these like sick gun kata, like spinning the gun, shooting the guy on the ground. He even like quick draws and fires when he opens on chest. And it's just like, the idea of that is really funny to me because of how like the whole like uncivilized, how Jedi like I'm above blasters, and it took so little convincing to get Cal to use it, and he instantly became a master with a blaster even though never touching it in his life. He's just like, I got this shit. He's just Arthur Morgan with it.
Yeah.
And then yeah.
I think what really helps with that is you described it as like John Wick and stuff like that, but I do agree it's more like Arthur Morgan, Red Dead style, because I think one of the big prevailing like visual themes I've noticed with Survivor, it feels a lot more Western focused. I mean, Star Wars has always been kind of Western focused. But you feel it especially here in this game. I feel like being on like the frontier and Cal having the blaster. Even his starting outfit is very cowboyish with his vest and all that.
It's it kind of fits Cal really well, like the gun, and he does really well with it. But I do have to shout out. Technically, Ezra was the first wielder of the gun blade. He had it different. His gun was attached to the lightsaber, but Cal definitely perfected it. It's really sick. But finally, I'm just gonna reiterate what Randy talked about with the double lightsaber of it's just really reliable, and it's kind of like the safety net one of it has a bunch of defensive moves. It'll deflect all the blasters back at you like really easily, and it's just really good for dealing with waves and waves of enemies. It was probably the best for when you're just like running around and not doing like boss fights and stuff. And even when you're doing boss fights, it's not bad. It's not like terrible. And especially, there's a very fun strategy if you can get an enemy to kind of stand still. If you do the fully upgrade, like you have to pretty much max out the whole tree. But once you get that fully upgraded lightsaber thing, you can just hold it there. That, like, holding the blade as it's spinning will destroy both guard gates and just kind of melt health bars. Because certain enemies, especially like the I think they're the sentry droids or what they're called. We'll just kind of get stuck in it trying to block it and just get chunk. And as long as you have the force to do it, it will just rip people apart. So that's
it also really helps to I'm trying to remember what it was. It also really helps. It gets like the bigger like animal beast type creatures.
Yes.
There's a lot of scenarios where you're like kind of in an arena and there's like 2 or sometimes even 3 of them. It's one of the ones that like I really like to do is confuse one of them to fight the other, and while they're both fighting each other, throw out the lightsaber and just kind of have it hitting both of them, just shredding their health like while they're kind of dealing with each other. So it's definitely like a viable strategy.
Yeah, that's super fun. I think the combat above all is like the biggest improvement. I love the new stances, but kind of like what Seth talked about. Lightsaber stances are not the only thing that was improved. Cal now can mind trick enemies mid-fight, which I'm gonna be honest, I kind of forgot he could do that for most of the game, so I didn't use it that much.
Yeah, I didn't use it that much until my Grandmaster one.
I'm glad it's not just me.
I like that we all were just like, hit it with the lightsaber.
Fucking hit it with I got a gun now.
I'm pretty sure the tutorial where they tell you to like, mind trick him, I just killed the dude with the lightsaber. Like I didn't have time to read it.
The game stops, by the way. The game freezes time and it's just like, look at this text. And says like,
it did the same thing. It did the same thing with the double blade with the dual wield lightsaber, and with the second sister where you're supposed to do the like focus parry, and I just kept hacking away at her. I'm like, man, why is she not dying? She's not losing any health. Like I don't understand. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's right. God. I was supposed to do the damn parry.
I've never seen a more crossblade user like mindset in my life. Like, what's this reading? Fuck that! I want to hit it.
Listen, there's a reason why when I play Elden Ring and Dark Souls and all that stuff, I don't put fucking shit into intelligence. It's all strength or nothing.
Man, reading's for nerds. Big swing.
Has a book ever blocked like a 2-ton blade? I don't fucking think so.
The pen might be mightier than the sword, but they've never met this sword. But yeah.
What's this pen and how can I attain it?
Yeah. Where's this mighty pen? And is it mightier than my 3-ton greatsword?
I feel like I'm Conan the Barbarian. It's just like, what is this pen you speak of?
Oh, it's great. But yeah, Cal has a lot more different force abilities. He also eventually gains the ability to lift people up and slam them back to the ground. And probably my favorite, 2 favorite upgrades are not actually combat, but movement stuff. I think the grappling hook is very fun, and that air dash is a fantastic change to the game. So much so that when you start New Game Plus, it's kind of hard not to just jump and realize, I can't do the move. Like I love that air dash. It's very fun to use. But Randy, what are your kind of favorite abilities for Cal now that aren't lightsaber based, I guess?
Okay, the ones that aren't lightsaber based, I really love being able to lift enemies up into the air, or even certain enemies. Like you can do this to certain bosses. Like they won't let you really lift them into the air and like be able to actually like use that opportunity for anything. But you can, depending on how many upgrades you have, I think you have to have it like maxed out. You can slam enemies into the ground, even like certain like boss enemies.
There's certain very big animals. Once you have that upgrade all the way, you can lift them in the air, which is kind of...
And also the bigger enemies too, which is, like, one thing you can kind of pair it with, and I found this really helpful in my Grandmaster playthrough, is typically a lot of enemies are, even with the higher upgrade to the Force Push, they don't go that far. But one thing I found that was really helpful was I would lift a bunch of those big-ass enemies positioned near, like, a cliff, position myself around them, and then just push them off the cliff, and they would die. So you know that part where you're in that swamp area, you come across the TIE fighter garrison, and a bunch of those big ass like sentry droids come out like towards the end of it, like it's like 2 or 3 of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I backed up into the hangar, allowed them to get really close to me, lifted them all up, got behind them, and then just force pushed them off into the forest. And I'm like, cool. I didn't have to swing a single lightsaber at them. It's
That's
like,
some
fuck yeah.
That's some Star Killer behavior right there. That's some strong stuff right there.
The damn when you're on like the High Republic like laboratory in the sky and you meet that one big hammer dude boss, like
Yeah.
he's a boss version of it, I just looked at him and immediately just threw him off the cliff and just like, yeah, I don't have time for this shit.
That's fantastic. It's like, finally,
person
a
you
war of
can't-
the opponent. What are you doing? Oh god, I thought I was too heavy. Oh god.
But yeah, I think like I do agree. I think Lift and Smash are like my favorite. They remind me a lot of Carnesis from Deathloop. It's Carnesis, right? The one that allows you to like
Yeah.
throw people up in the air and slam them down. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of that.
Yeah, that's a fun one too. I agree with you. Yeah, that one, the lift and the slam. Well, I kind of wish I used it more. They're definitely fun abilities and kind of fit naturally into Cal's kit. Let me ask you guys one thing, because the other kind of big change is slow is not an ability anymore. Which arguably it was probably the best ability in the first game. It was really how you could get around a lot of bosses. But now it's a big super move. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you miss having it as an ability, or do you think like, yeah, it's kind of fair now that it's like a bigger version, but it takes a while to build up? Seth, I'll start.
I definitely prefer that reason, not because of its uses in combat. It's just because of no more of the stupid slow puzzles in the Fallen Order, where like you can very easily just like mistime it like just by an inch. Like the worst one was on Bogano, where under the mantis there's that little ruin area, and there's the ball you have to get up, and you have to like slow it at the right spot and then force push it. It would go wrong so many times. Like, oh my god, this is so annoying. So yes, I'm glad that the damn slow puzzles are gone. That's the reason why I like it. That it's more like an ultimate now.
That's not even like what I meant for it, but that's fair. That's a fair answer. Randy, similar thoughts, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm pretty glad that it's kind of put on a super
Yeah.
now, I guess. And also it offers up like now, because before it was on the right bumper.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're able to hold right bumper, and it gives you so many more options for what you can do. It's how you do the lift and the slam. And let's transition on into gameplay. It's how you activate your person that you're with, your ally, to pretty much target an opponent and attack them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone else used the transition instead of me. I'm impressed. Wow. One of these days, I won't even have to host anymore. I'll just let you guys
One
do
thing
it.
I want to add about like the slow thing though is narratively, I think it makes a little bit more sense to have it work this way. Is because like one of the things that Fallen Order has kind of emphasized more than like I think a lot of other Star Wars media, except for of course the goated Knights of the Old Republic, is that certain Jedi have specific special abilities innate to them, and for Cal, it seems like the slow ability and the like force sensitive stuff where he's able to
force,
like sense
the force
these echoes and stuff.
Which he's not the only one to do, I want to point out. That's not a new thing for Cal.
No, no, it's not a new thing for Cal, but like I remember the director talking about this with Fallen Order, is that they wanted to push this idea that like only certain Jedi have this ability. Even Seer makes a mention of that in the first game, that like not many Jedi have this ability. So I feel like it helps sell the uniqueness to Cal of like what makes those force powers special to him. Is that like, yeah, you can only use force slow under an ultimate circumstance. I think it makes it more special.
It also does kind of make sense logistically. I know, again, talking about Space Wizards, but logistically it does make sense because what force slow is, like, he's not actually slowing time. What it is he is... at least described by the developers, is he's using push and pull at the same time on one thing, so it's just kind of stuck in the force, or like moving through molasses through it. Which in the first game didn't actually make a lot of sense because the first game Cal didn't know how to do push or pull at that, like, after not using the Force. But for some reason he can remember how to do both at the same time. But yeah, I agree. I think it kind of slow is kind of like Cal's signature move, so I think it fits that it's like now his actual like ultimate. He's like moved beyond it, and it's fun. But yeah, as Randy mentioned, with that fantastic transition. Good job.
Are we going to gameplay stuff? I assume we're talking about the companions, but we jumped into this because of Force powers, right? Because there's one more thing I do want to mention about the Force powers.
Sure, just ruin the transition. Fail. Yeah.
Seth will go, wait.
Seth will ruin the transition again. God damn.
I have a lot of ideas on this. And I do want to talk about that. This is more like a narrative nitpick than anything. One of the things I really liked about Fallen Order is every time you got a new Force ability for Cal, it was signifying that he was rebuilding his connection and drawing upon a memory of his master and trying to like slowly repair that trauma that he went through. I really liked how it was handled in Fallen Order. To me in Survivor, it's more like, oh yeah, Seer taught me this. I forgot about that. Now I remember. Cool. Thanks, Seer. It's like, okay. It's like, yeah, fuck, I forgot about that. Thanks, Seer.
Yeah.
I feel like the gaining the new Force abilities are not nearly as impactful here in terms of like the narrative.
I never got it as like, to defend it a little bit. You're right, it doesn't hit as much as the first game, but I will at least defend it it's not that he forgot what it was. I kind of viewed it more as like he finally understood the lesson versus like, because back when she told him, yeah, there's more, you can do more than just kill things. That's when he understood like, oh, she meant like I could tame it, I could be calm with it. Or sometimes like, I forget what it was with like the dash, but it was just like always look for another angle or something like that. And it's kind of more him understanding the lesson than like, oh yeah, I forgot Seer told me to do that. But yeah, I will admit that yes, it does not hit as much as like when we went back and this freaking fly is killing me. When we went back and like saw Cal like learning this for the first time. So I agree with you. Anything else you have to do you want to say about Force abilities, or can we pretend the transition actually happened?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He'll allow it.
Yeah, just take over the whole podcast. Why not? Anyway, yeah, as Randy mentioned, there's now different companions that accompany you. Both the new character of Bode and also the best girl, Marin. And they're
okay. First of all,
yes.
You will not take best girl from Tali Zora, but anyway.
The best girl in this game.
There you go.
Yeah.
Had to issue a little correction there. Glad we got that all sorted out.
Yes, but no, yeah. Star Wars is best. Can I say best goth girl, or is that also going too far?
Best Russian witch goth.
There's a lot of competition in that area. You got
Star Wars
Sam
goth
from
girl.
You got like fucking that one chick from Total Drama Island.
You got Raven.
Yeah, you got Raven. You got the goth girl Raven. Holy shit!
I meant best goth girl in Star Wars. Yeah.
I think the problem is she's the only goth girl in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, do we count?
We can count Ventress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like all the Night Sisters. Someone's got a thing.
It's just all the Night Sisters.
Someone's got a thing for Mama Talzin, or Mommy Talzin, however they would say it. That seems like Seth's kind of girl, if I'm just being honest.
All right. Shall we?
yeah. But that's a cool little like mechanic that like your companion does. I do kind of wish there were more opportunities with them because I feel like through large portions of the game they're just not there. There are still like there's cool like animation like takedowns with you, but I feel like there was also a really big missed opportunity where like Cal never teamed up with Seer or like did something cool with that or I'm trying to throw, or even like I know Grease doesn't fight a lot, but I think it would have been cool to like do something with that. Like there's times where he shows up and he has a gun in all four hands. I feel like you could have been very creative with like doing something like that. But
like BD finish, like like how Miles Morales, like he
has the
video
cat
game,
finisher.
he got, like, the
Dude,
cat takedown, like
I
the
would
BD takedown.
You would have seen me lose my mind if Cal like
All right,
disarmed a dude.
Jedi Survivor sequel. We better have BD takedowns.
I want a BD takedown. He has the electric dart now. That could have been it. That could have been what did it. When you got the electric dart, like it would have been like Cal disarms him and then like puts his back to him and BD like jumps on their face and electrocutes them. That would have been amazing. Oh, that would have been the sickest shit. See what I mean? Like it's a cool mechanic.
Yeah, to be fair, and I completely understand why they probably why Cal probably wouldn't want to do that is because the last time BD jumped onto someone and tried to do something like that, it was Darth Vader,
and
he
it did
damn near
not
got crushed to death.
Cal did get stabbed in the ribs because he did that.
Yeah.
He walked that one off though. He walked that off like a
BD
champ.
BD did get visible damage too. He did get a little crushed from it.
Maybe that's why BD doesn't do that anymore. Maybe in the third game.
One time you get to do it, BD, and you got hurt pretty bad for it.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing that could happen. If anything happens to BD, do you want to know that this game, the next game would be 0 out of 10?
We kind of know that nothing will happen to him.
They better fucking not, Seth.
Because he shows up in Book of Boba Fett.
A version of the droid
Him,
shows
per
up
se.
in Book of Version. It's not the same colors. We don't know if it's BD. Could be a different.
Well, yeah, but we also changed BD's colors in the game.
Yeah, but like canonically, that's not what he looks like. Like in the next game, he's definitely gonna show up with a red paint job, as he normally does. Like how, like canonically, technically, Cal only stuck with the Scrapper outfit. Like, cause on all the flashbacks and all the posts, like he doesn't have the poncho on.
Yeah, they were like, all right, we get it.
I would have loved if they did like every time you went to a flashback, Cal had like the pink poncho on.
And Cal also does like acknowledge about like the poncho too, especially whenever you do get it. He's like, "Oh man, I missed this thing." Or he says something along those
this was in my miscellaneous notes, but once you finally get the poncho and you put it on, the little like happy dance Cal does when he puts it on, he's like, "Yay!" Is the cutest fucking shit in the world. He gets so happy he has his poncho back. It's amazing. And I love how much like the developers and the actor are in on the joke. I'm sure I know all of us have, but most people have seen the clip of like the actor going on to like Star Wars Celebration and just constantly asking the devs. Meanwhile, he is wearing a poncho of like, where's the poncho? How come I'm not wearing a poncho? And he's like, and they try to ask him real questions. It's like, what's something you could tell us about the new game? It's like, well, the new game has some different changes. Mainly, I'm not wearing a poncho. And they're like, Cameron, move on. I love how much like they're in on the joke. It's fantastic. But yeah, that kind of does, speaking of ponchos, until Seth ruins this transition, let's talk about cosmetics. Because that's the other kind of big thing that changed from this game from the last, is there are a bunch of different cosmetics now for Cal, BD, including not only with like the different outfits and colors, but even hairstyles. You can give him a beard, you can give him a mullet, you can make Cal into a racist redneck if you really felt like, give him that mustache. Y'all know the one I'm talking about.
You know the one.
Y'all know the one. And it's fun, but you can kind of make Cal more your own thing. You can't change his hairstyle. He's going to always and forever be a ginger. I'm sure that'll turn up in the next game. Someone will make fun of him for it. Surprised it hasn't happened in 2 games, dang. But yeah, what's kind of your guys? Do you guys have kind of a favorite either outfit or look for Cal? Seth, I'll start with you.
I do like the mullet. I did.
Of course you do.
On my second playthrough, I definitely went full on like, you want to take my lightsaber from me? You gotta come and take it. Like I went full on like redneck Cal, and I really like that. I got to embrace that. I don't really have much to say about the cosmetics. They're cool. They're neat. I think one downside is no proper headgear for Cal.
Why would
Besides
you want
the
to hide up
bandana.
that hair, though?
I think it would be cool though because like I got this like whole ass cowboy outfit for Cal, and it's like, but I cannot pair a cowboy hat for you.
That would yeah, that would be cool if you could find like Cad Bane's hat somewhere or something like that.
Yeah, or like the kind of like the more armored up, like almost look like clone armor set that you kind of get, the
Yeah.
commander set.
Put the
like if
helmet
you
on
got
with
like
it.
the pair with the helmet. Like that's really it. Like I like what's there. And I kind of just wish we could pair like a helmet with it because I feel like that was just like the one last little missing thing.
Fair enough, but I like the different hair options. You're right, yeah. Some helmets or hats would have been cool, but knowing me, I definitely would have put on like the weird stupid hat right before the most emotional cutscene and be like, I should have done this. I should have. I messed this up, but that's more me than the game. Yeah, for me, I would switch around between both the like the Jedi robes. I think that would be cool. But if I'm like kind of exploring or doing more, or really, if I was using because my main combos were like I would use gun stance and then dual sabers. I would turn my saber white and then put on the bomber jacket. I think that was cool. But if I was doing like the double blade and doing more story missions with that and the crossguard, I would put on the Jedi robe. So it's kind of a fun little like lore thing for like hardcore Star Wars fans. Ray, what about you? What's kind of your go-to look for Cal? Are you big mountain
I know
guy?
once I finally got it, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. It's called the Drifter jacket. It's kind of this a bit fancier outfit. It has these like leather bits kind of over the chest, like down in a V with these shoulder pads and these cool like bracers that are kind of a similar leather to like what he has on the chest. And it has these cool like coattails, so it still kind of gives like Jedi like robes vibes, but in like a very different way. It's just I found it very unique and cool.
Yeah, I can see it. I think I know. Wait, let me make sure I'm thinking of the same one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know that one. That one's cool. I enjoy it. I don't think I used that one as much, but it's not bad.
But yeah, I think I paired that with like just the hermit pants and whatnot like that. Or maybe it wasn't the hermit ones, but it might
You're
have
talking
been
about
just
like
the
Kenobi's
survivor.
outfit.
Yeah, Kenobi's outfit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did pay the monies and got the deluxe outfit, so I ended up with
Jesus Christ, it's close to $80 there, man.
yeah, I know, but I also have like 80 hours in the game already, so $1 an hour.
Yes, it's worth it.
So, so yeah, I mean that comes with in the deluxe edition. You get like a couple different outfits. You have an outfit that looks like Kenobi. You have an outfit that looks like Luke from A New Hope, the end of A New Hope, where there's like the ceremony, and then you also have like a Han Solo outfit. So
And you get
it was
Han's
fun
blaster, I
to
thought.
use those. So
Yeah.
and you get Han's blaster and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, I think that is. So, is there any other things that I'm going to check at you now every time? Is there any other things you want to talk about cosmetic wise before we start going into like characters and story and like where this could go? Oh, it's Randy
So are
this
we
time.
gonna talk?
Oh, I thought that was him. Okay.
I was wondering, are we talking at all about like kind of the collectible explorable stuff yet, or are we gonna hold off on that?
I think we'll get to that when we do side stuff. Just in regards to last little bit I'll touch on in regards to customization is the lightsaber customization, and I know we touch on it a little. Like, yes, you can change the like you have a lot more components than you did the first game. You can customize BD now. You can change his components, but you can also change the like condition of the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Whether
make it
it's,
all, like, beat up or like super pristine.
Same for BD as well. So it is pretty.
And the gun.
And the gun, you can change if it's pristine or whatnot, and so I enjoyed that.
Yeah. You can also change the crossguard to make it more like shaped like a V, or like completely 90, or shaped like a I guess upside down V. I don't know how else you would describe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, you know what? Since we kind of already touched a bit on it, the one thing I do wish they could have done with the cosmetics and not go super crazy, because I kind of like the more balanced way of they're doing it and not like gear score, is I do wish that whenever you found like a new outfit or like maybe even a lightsaber hilt or like a new gun part for your blaster, I do wish there was a tiny little perk tied to it. Nothing crazy. Like something like, oh, you're wearing this like very gunslinger type outfit, you get one extra shot with the blaster, or something like that.
Yeah. Would you?
Just to help incentivize it more, because at a certain point, it was kind of becoming like Fallen Order again. It's like, yes, I found a chest, and inside is a poncho. So like, I think it would help. Like, they already did such a great job with like adding in perks as like a thing you can find in the world and making it exciting because it's enhancing something about your play style. So it'd be cool to have things like certain outfits like help like maybe push towards like other play styles too. Like maybe the Kenobi outfit or something pushes more towards like a force focus like play style.
I will counter that by saying I like that mechanic. I like that idea. But I feel like if you're gonna do that, I would almost wait for the third game. I would think that would be a better thing because this is like kind of it'd be a good progression of like the first game, no perks. This is your stats. You go whatever. Second game, okay, you're introducing perks so you can have unique variety. I think that's a really cool improvement from here forward. It's just like now even your gear has extra stats and stuff. So that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The thing though is like I don't want it to go crazy though. Like that's the thing, is because like the smart thing they did with like the perks and how they work in this game is none of them are just straight up like, oh, this just does more damage. Like it's just like, no, it's something you have to do something special to get it. You have to like you do more damage in between blaster shots, or you do more damage when you switch to a different stance or use a force ability. And it's like not just damage, but there's like all kinds of other like shit too. Like God, I don't know why I'm only thinking of this. Lightsaber throw does more damage. There's other perks in that. I swear to God.
There's one that increases like your block meter.
Yeah.
You do more damage to the enemy's block meter.
Increase damage after using a force move.
Yeah, these are like more like sort of these are more interesting ways of like providing new playstyles and perks to players without having it be like there is no one above all, the best one that beats them out. It's all about your individual play style. Because if it was just one perk that was like do more damage, everyone would pick that up. Like, you know, like it's just like, well, yeah, I just want to do more damage. So I would want like the perks for clothing to be something smaller, like just something very little bit, like maybe like, ooh, you get a little extra force or something. Like that's it. Like I don't want it to go crazy.
So
because I do feel like the most substantial upgrades should come from the perk slots themselves, not necessarily the items.
So, Reddy, you're kind of saying you don't know. What are your thoughts about it?
I think I think perks, very small perks, like what Seth is describing, would not be bad. But if they start to be like, oh, if you wear, this armor increases your health by, 0.8% or whatever, like to where it starts to get MMO like.
Yeah.
Like, dude, just go play like Star Wars: The Old Republic. That MMO, there's a Star Wars MMO that exists. If you want all the crazy gear score and stuff like that, and like the loot that's very stat based and stuff like that, go play that.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that nothing is tied to that. If they do implement something like that, even if it is small perks like that, I would almost want there to be some sort of like transmog system to where you can have perks go along with any outfit, but at that point might as well just have it be just a perk like what's already in the game. So I don't know.
I see your point.
Maybe it might just be better to just further improve the perks, give us a more variety of perks, and and keep it to where it's not, oh, one perk is easily the best one you need to have.
Yeah.
And I think they've, in regards to the perk system so far in this game, I've enjoyed it. Nothing's been like super overwhelming, like, yeah, that's the best one, or there's not one that's like, oh, that's trash, why would I ever use that?
Yeah. They're all
it's
kind of
more
like
about, like,
pretty
finding
good
one
balance,
that
and it's more
Yeah,
like changing the play style than
it's
action.
more like, because like when you get excited to see a perk, it's something like, oh, this one fits exactly with my play style. Like, I'm all about being aggressive and breaking the enemy's guard. This is the one I want.
I can see that. Yeah. I can see both your...
Because I agree with Randy. Like, I feel like that's the one thing that makes me hesitant to say, like, this is what I want. It's like, yes, in my mind, it's like, man, I really wish there was something extra to these clothes when I found them to make them more special. But I also, I agree with Randy. It's like, that's a slippery slope ending up into, like, gear scores and shit. And that's where I definitely don't want this game to end up being as.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of leaning more towards what Randy's talking about. It's like, improve the actual perks themselves, add more of that, but, like, don't know if putting it like to the gear, like in your clothing and cosmetics, is the exact right move. But
yeah, I just want to be. I guess my thing is, I just want to be as excited for finding a new cosmetic or something like that as I am for like when I find one of those little shrines for like an upgrade. Because like I'm way more excited for those than finding a chest.
But I feel like almost that's the point. Like because the shrines usually are harder to do. There's like a harder puzzle than the chest. It's still good to find a chest, but I almost feel like you might even lose stuff from the shrines
it's
itself.
Almost like to the point where I'm just like, I'd rather go for like the Force Echo to get the XP than I would rather want to like go for the chest. You know, it's one of those weird things where like adding in like a collectible like this and it's only just cosmetic in the game kind of like this was an issue also with like Fallen Order admittedly as well, where it's just kind of like, like it's not as exciting to find or explore and stuff like that. Because even with the Force Echo, it's like not only are you getting a little bit of story on top of it, but you're also getting rewarded with a nice nugget of XP as well.
Yeah, I see it. But let's move on to the next, because we've been talking about this one for a while. Let's move on to the next topic, which is kind of... Let me think how I want to do this. We'll talk about... let's talk about characters and stories, and we'll come back to like the side areas. Because I feel like some of the side areas we can't get to until we progress in the story and talk about characters. So at this point, I think it's probably safe to say we're an hour into it. Yeah, we're going to start talking about spoilers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that is your fairest of warnings. But yeah, the big character that was added to this was Bode. And he's in all the trailers. He's your other kind of companion other than Marin that like can help you in combat. And that's he's very integral to the story, but we'll get back to that. Because the other kind of big part is that this game, as I've referenced earlier, ties back to High Republic, which is something I was actually super excited for, and I'm really glad they did. I kind of wish they had more references to like the books and stuff. We really don't get that many other than the Nihil, and there's like one other Jedi that I can't remember his name right now, but it's referenced to it. I really wish they talked about it more. I wish we could have seen what the Nihil looked like, because we haven't. We've only heard about it in books. So I guess
have there not been any comics?
I mean, like they've been in.
They look like?
No, not really. They've been in. The only time we've seen them is more like book covers, and like descriptions, and like some people have drawn illustrations from like what the book is talking about, but like nothing in an actual like, not a video game, not like any of the TV shows. And I thought it would have been really cool to see them, but I also kind of understand like, they might want to actually do their own series before taking that leap. But it was still cool seeing the references to that. I know not everyone's like super well diverse in the High Republic. I really enjoyed those books. I've been reading through them, and they're super entertaining. But yeah, let's talk about kind of the first main like big bad of this game, which is Dagon. He is a knight from the High Republic, one of the few knights that actually like trained in lightsaber combat, which was kind of almost rare back then because there wasn't a big Sith presence, which bites him in the butt in the book actually, which is fun. But anyway, yeah, let's talk about Dagon. You fight him 3 separate times, as well as like some of the other bosses. But Randy, what are your kind of thoughts on Dagon as a character?
As a character, he's super fun to fight.
Yeah.
And fighting him that first time, I was sitting there and I was playing it, and Will was watching me, and we both like. It's the scene that happens to where he gets out of the back to tank, and he kind of is frustrated with what happened, with how he gets left here, and like the Jedi betrayed him, and he corrupts his lightsaber so that it turns red.
Yeah.
Yeah, he bleeds his blade, and then it's like this overwhelming like soundtrack that happens, and he ignites it.
Yeah.
And like simultaneously, even in the lead up to that, I'm just like, oh no, he's hot. And then that happens in that like sick ass pose, and I was just like, shit, I'm gonna have to kill this hottie. But
I will
regardless of his hotness,
yeah.
I think as a character, maybe it's a little on me, but I felt like, other than just being kind of obsessed with Tanalorr, which is like he's supposed to be, but I don't think I understood why he was obsessed with Tanalorr. Can one of you two explain to me why he was obsessed with Tanalorr?
So
Other than, this is pretty neat, I'm glad I found this.
Yeah, I think I agree with Randy on this, and I think it's a narrative issue. Is I really like his character, and like because like to me, the way I kind of read into Dagon is he's basically like kind of like the High Republic's version of Anakin. Someone who was like one of their best warriors, got too prideful, and then like part of it was like the love of his life and wanting to protect them, led him down a dark path and lets him to basically gets to a part where he resents like the Jedi Council and turns on them.
Okay, explaining it that way makes me like it a little better.
But there's the key point though you brought up, and I think we should touch on is what's the big deal with Tanalorr? Because I really, besides the fact
why
that
does he care about Tanalorr?
Yeah.
Like, I understand why Cal cares and why like other characters care, but why does he care?
Yeah, well, like another issue, I think the issue though with the story is like, why is Tanalorr a big deal in the first place? Besides the fact that it's hidden in the abyss, what makes it so special that it was a potential place, a potential new seat for the council, as Dagon was proposing? What makes Tanalorr so special? Why was it hidden in the abyss in the first place? Is another thing. What the heck is like all this stuff stemming? Like, there's things like the abyss itself, the Kobo matter, all this stuff that's not really ever explained in the game, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but the game kind of ends in a spot where none of those questions are answered. It's just like, yeah, it's weird shit, and everybody fought over Tanalorr, and it's like, all right, why? Like, what's the big deal? And we never got that, and it kind of made me feel like either they're holding on to this for like a 3 or something like that. It kind of left me feeling unsatisfied, but going back to Dagon himself, I do think like he is like a good character though. Like, I think when you think about him in the context of like, especially when you think of other characters like Anakin, like he's very like Anakin-esque. This is the same stuff that led him down this path, and also being a darker like, I feel like a running theme that's going to be in all of these Jedi games is that Cal was basically dealing with some sort of darker reflection of himself, where in the first game, Trilla was a good example of like, this could have been Cal in any other circumstance. Someone who would have basically fell to the dark side and joined up with the Inquisitors because he had nowhere else to go. And then now in this game, he is fighting so hard to protect the people that he loves that in a sense it does corrupt him. So I really also like Dagon being like the main villain. I wish we honestly got more of him. I feel like he was underutilized.
So here's my thing about Dagon. I agree with you. I like him. I see the Anakin comparisons, and I like that he is kind of a reflection of like what Cal can turn into. That's great. What I think would have been great, and I think would have been a fantastic thing. Yes, obviously the first time you meet him, you're like, this guy's gonna be evil. That's fine. But it was a weird thing when it was literally that second he was not in the new world for 5 minutes. Cal didn't even finish explaining everything that happened. And he's already like, lightsaber going right, I'm killing this guy. I think it would have been really good if you played a level and make him, like how you did Marin or Bode, where he's in a sitch you can throw at and he does like a lightsaber strike. And make him broken. Make him really good. Like he like one-shots things. It doesn't matter. Just do one level where he is still on your side and still just trying to figure out the world. Because he doesn't know this world yet. And he's still planning on doing what he's going to do. But give him a little time so that he can kind of figure out, and then wait until Cal says something or that leads him, like that kind of makes him realize like, oh, you want Tanalorr for everyone else? Like, no, this is like my thing. Like, I'm going to rule it. Like, don't make him turn so fast. Because I feel like just one level could have been like the best level in the game. And that would have really fleshed out his character into seeing like why he is the way he is. Because also like my thing is if he hates the Order so much, the first thing Cal says to him is the Order's gone. So he's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know you. I have nothing against you. In fact, I kind of like you because you freed me. Let him talk for a minute and then get a reason to hate him.
Yeah, well, like the thing though is like with the story though, it's kind of set up that this was always like kind of like Dagon's like kind of plan. Maybe not specifically Cal himself, but Dagon was thrown into a bacta tank after he had already gone full on committed to betraying the Jedi Order. He had already done that. Of course he's like, yeah, I want to wipe out like the Jedi and stuff like that because fuck them. But also like Cal introduces himself as a Jedi. He's like, all right, nah, kid, we're not doing this. Fuck you. And so he like beats the shit out of him. But also like the big thing is he had always been kind of like, it seems like communicating even while in the bacta tank with Ravis somehow to like get him free, because Ravis has always known he was there. He just needed a way to get to them, and it shows that Dagon, even while in that state, is able to communicate because he deliberately tells Cal to free him whenever Cal's digging through his memories. Yeah. So like this is, I feel like I feel like Dagon's always been bad, or at least
I'm not saying like he turns bad when he wakes up. I mean more like he doesn't reveal it so early. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, yes, it's obvious to the audience. He has gray skin. Like, yeah. And yellow eyes. Like, yeah. He's going to be the bad guy. We saw it in a trailer. But I think, like, let him, like, run the audience along a little bit. Let him pretend to be good with Cal. Walk around a little bit. Don't immediately try to kill him. Yeah. Give it a minute.
Yeah, I think one thing like I said, is I really wish, and this is the problem, is the villain's problem here. I think they already had a great start with Dagon. Just focus on developing that instead of suddenly pivoting to another villain, which is weird to me. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we have one side villain to get to that, because there are other bosses, but the other big one is, and we referenced it earlier, is Ravis. I'm saying that right?
Yeah, Ravis.
Yeah, he is a and I'm definitely not going to know the name of this alien, but he's an alien species that like can kind of regrow his limbs.
The Gendai.
That thing. What's it just said?
Yeah,
they're very hard.
They live for like super long, and they're incredibly hard to kill because they regrow their limbs and shit.
Yeah.
It's funny enough. The last time we saw one of these on screen was in the 2003 animated Clone Wars television show.
Go ahead.
Dirge, the bounty hunter.
Just go ahead, steal my fact. That's fine. Not mad about it. No, I'm joking. yes,
well,
you're right.
You always get after me. Go, you don't watch the Clone Wars. Like, I did watch the Clone Wars.
That's not the right one. that's the wrong one.
Yeah, but did Mace Windu lift up a whole goddamn army and force crush them with his bare hands?
No, because that's
did he punch a B2 battle droid
with his fist?
With his fist?
His bare fist. God. Yeah, no, okay.
That show was on something, I tell you what.
That thing was, that was anime Star Wars. That thing was awesome. But that's not what we're talking. We're talking about Ravis. Ravis is a cool boss. I don't think he was communicating with Dagon I think it's more like he knows he's there because that's where the Jedi imprisoned him, and he's just kind of like, I mean, he's in the bath, but like I know he just can't get to him. I don't think like Ravis isn't like talking to him through the Force. Or anything like that. He's just kind of like, well, my boss is just kind of stuck up there.
Now, and granted, there's a lot of ways to explain it, but like kind of where I got that thought is like, well, he does conveniently show up after like Cal gets into his first fight with Dagon, and then all of a sudden like Ravis is there in the LAAT, and he's like, "What's up?" Hey, it's
Didn't he need the tuner though to get into that area?
Well, Cal
opened the door.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, even if Ravis is like, I know where you're at, but I can't get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so he just was just following him.
Yeah, he could have been just following Cal. So, but it feels like things like, well, you need the tuner and all this is like, some part of me thinks that he might have been like talking with him, but like he may not have been. Either way, though, Ravis, whether he was directly talking with them or not, it is pretty clear that Ravis and Dagon were coordinating.
Yeah, at least before he got bathed.
There must have been some sort of plan in play before sorry, I almost called him fuckface Cal got there.
Fuckface. But yeah, they because they do talk about like even in the flashback like how Dagon beat Ravis in a duel. They even said like, this is taking longer than my duel with Ravis, but yada yada. But talking with Ravis as like a character in a boss fight, he is arguably one of, kind of like how the Ninth Sister was in the last one, he might be the most fun boss to fight. He is really, I don't know, I really enjoy him, especially using the cross guard, just the big heavy punches at him. He has a lot of wide swing, these kind of and this weird weapon he's using. But
it's like a it's a flail.
It's a flail,
yeah. Super flail. Yeah.
It's a flail the size of Cal's torso is what it is. It's huge.
One of my favorite moves that he would do was the one where he would like throw it past you and then pull it right back. It's like, sure, you blocked the first hit, but did you block the second one?
I like a one like he'd spin around and like kick it at you. I was like, what the fuck? How are you this acrobatic?
It was pretty cool to see because like I don't remember ever seeing a flail in Star Wars up until this point.
No, it's a cool weapon, and he's also like, I do like after you beat his first phase, you cut his arm off and then he grows it back, and then he's just faster and more aggressive version. Like I remember the first phase I would do with the double or with the cross guard, and I tried swishing. I was like, no, I need the more block. Oh my gosh, he's just swinging too much. I can't block this. Just going too fast.
Dude,
it was just like a great, just straight up like fucking like just bro on bro fight.
Yeah, that fight was dope. I remember
there was so much masculine energy there.
God, I
remember doing it with the
there's some chest hair playing that fight.
with the dual wielding and like being able to like parry, hit an attack, parry, hit an attack. Like I say like parry, it's not to where he gets stunned, but like go in between the attacks, and that was one of the reasons I love that stance for that fight alone. It was just like perfect.
Or the big ass gun that's like about the size of Cal. Like I don't know where he was keeping that blaster. He just kind of just whipped it out whenever he was ready. He was
using it as his spine basically because he pulls it out of his back. Which, to be fair, because of like the way that alien works, he can do that.
Oh yeah. Imagine all the stuff that he could just fit in there. Like you just don't know.
God, there's a terrible joke about that. There's such a terrible joke. But the one thing that I will say, I might throw in the clip about it. I don't know. I might be lazy. The first time I played that boss fight, I showed you guys this clip. I was fighting with the dual hand, and I killed him by deflecting a bolt at him, and it was a charge bolt, so it killed him. But he was on the opposite side where he's supposed to be defeated. Usually it doesn't matter because the game will just kind of cut and put him to where he's supposed to be. But for some reason, his character all kind of shuffled over to where he's supposed to be. And during the cutscene, I'm like, oh, he's kind of twitching out. And then Cal goes for the finishing hit, and the character model just freaks the fuck out. It goes everywhere. It's kind of like, oh god, I need to kill it now. Oh my god, that was not supposed to happen that way. It was kind of like, oh, that's a dumb little moment that happened, but also it was kind of funny. Yeah. Ravis is a cool boss fight, and he's also a cool character. He's the kind of traditional, like, I'm a honor bound, like, type trope, but I also got the sense of he was just like, please fucking kill me. Like, I just really am tired of this. I've been around for thousands of years because of a technicality, and I don't even like this guy that much anymore. I just need someone to kill me, which is, I think, he almost allows Cal to kill him because that alien species is supposed to survive getting his head cut off.
You gotta, yeah. I mean, he forces them to, and I think I do like that about it. That was like a fun little moment where it's just like Cal's like, I beat you. That means you are now honor bound to me. You will help me fight Ravis. He's like, nah, fam. I already fell for that once. I ain't doing it again.
I do like that. And he's just like, no.
I like how at first with like Cal, he is just so like he was so disrespectful towards him whenever they're doing like their duel, where he's like kind of like just talking about his past for a bit, and then Cal's like, "Where's Dagon again?" He's like, "I heard you the first time," and it's like I love this how much he just doesn't give a shit about Cal right at the start. He's just like, whatever, man.
I also. Another very underrated moment is the actual first time you meet him. You get to the bar, and he's beating up that little shit Turgle. I should have let him kill him. But Cal stops him, walking like a freaking Western. He's got his hand on his belt. He's striding up. And after, like, you beat, like, his little henchman, like his handyman, he because he knows about the Jedi stuff, he's like, hey, my weapon's away. I will walk away peacefully. And Cal's like, all right, I like that peace stuff. Okay, yeah. And he's like, he knows the Jedi. He knows how to like work around the Jedi. I'm like, that's cool. A villain that's smart and doesn't insult the man. He could kind of trick Cal into letting him get what he wants. So, Ravis is a cool boss. Randy, what are your kind of thoughts on his character and his boss fights? I didn't get to. Well, you already talked about fighting him, but we didn't hear your thoughts about him as a character.
As a character, I mean, he's fine. I didn't think that there was anything like super special, but I don't think he needed to be for the character that he is. I think it was fine just having him be a just kind of like honor bound, which I think felt was a bit different, and I don't know. I mean, he was fine.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't really have much. Sorry.
No, that's fair. Then we will move on to probably the hardest and most difficult boss fight that has ever been put in this game, and the best character that has ever been put in any Star Wars game. Rick the Door Technician. This is where you guys laugh or like say some funny comment about Rick.
I mean, I just kind of parried him and stabbed him, so it was whatever.
What the issue was with him. But,
yeah, very much. Yeah, I don't know. It was a
Easy
funny.
clap.
Yeah, it's a funny little gag where for some reason they give a health bar to one random clone or trooper, not clone. These are not clones. Yeah, I had the gun stance, so I shot him I blocked him, tripped him, and shot him in the mouth. But no, the actual. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I don't got anything to say about Rick. He's just, I don't know, man. I just stabbed him.
Just stabbed him. Fair enough. But the actual kind of big final showdown is with Dagon. You actually get to fight him with Bode for part of that fight. That's a really cool fight because this is the second time you fought him. And while Dagon only has one arm, he just kind of not grows, but uses the Force to get a second arm and still like uses the second part of it.
So that's how you read into it, huh? Because like how I kind of first off, this is technically his third fight. You fight him 3 times. Did I
not say 3?
You said second.
Oh, I thought okay. I meant third.
Yeah, well, so but it's interesting you interpret it that way because the way I interpret it is Dagon is doing some weird like Force hallucination shit happening around him. And I feel like it's like this weird thing where like the veil between like the force and reality is coming down, but it's allowing Cal to see his like how, because like Dagon has already been like the second fight, for example, Dagon is both dual blading and dual wielding like lightsabers. And it looks like he's just like floating it with his mind. But whenever you're in that world, it's like, oh, it's like he's using the force to manifest another arm. But Cal is just now seeing it.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting because at one point he like grabs you with it, and like at that point it's like, well, why don't you just like, you can already do that with the Force. You don't need to hold me. But I don't know.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's during a sequence that's very like interesting because it's the whole thing where like the pretty much the arena is melting. I didn't realize it was a hallucination at first. I was like, damn, Dagon is that strong, but like the part where he flips the arena on it
on the ceiling,
the arena around.
Yeah.
Initially, like I didn't realize this was a hallucination either. I was like, "Oh my god!"
I'm not gonna lie, that was sick when he's just like, "We're fine on the ceiling now." I was like, "Oh."
And I legit thought it was real because when the fight was over, I was like, okay, here's the funny gag where like they fall off the ceiling and hit the, it's like, oh no, like, and then Bode makes a comment, it's like, what did you see? Talking about like the hallucination. So, I like to think that basically Dagon has always had that force arm. You just don't see it unless you're under the right circumstances.
Fair.
I mean, yeah, because in the second fight he uses the blade, but like his arm isn't there.
Yeah. It's cool. I don't know. It's interesting to think about. Yeah, that's probably more what they were going for because the whole other fight is like using the Force to kind of trick you. And even towards the end, that's how Cal ends up defeating him, is using that same trick against him, making Cal look like what's the new other
Suntiri,
Creed, yeah. Making him look like that to kind of drop Dagon's defenses. The last thing I will say about that fight as well is one of the coolest animations for whatever reason in my mind is when you break his guard and hit him. There's Bode will like jump on his back and like put a grenade on his chest, and he's like trying to get it off. Cal just struts up like a badass and looks at him, pulls the gun out, and shoots the bomb. I don't know why that goes hard. That goes immensely hard, and Cal doesn't even. He barely even, like, he doesn't even face him. He's just, like, side shot. I don't know why. When I first saw that, I even clipped it because I was like, oh, that was cool. That was so cool. But, yeah, that's a very fun boss fight. It has a lot of fun gimmicks. And just, I love the progression of the 3 fights from the first time you fight him, he's only got the one saber. The second time, now there's the one spinning around. And the third fight, he does have the other hand, more moves, and it's just kind of throwing everything he's got at you.
Yeah, that was the coolest part about his fights in general was like, and I really struggled to think of too many where it wasn't, where like Dagon is just freely switching between like all these different stances, like dual wield, even single stance where he just throws the blade out and then double bladed. Basically he has all like the stances from the first game, I guess, and not because he doesn't have a cross-guarded blaster because he doesn't need that shit. Because like in the
he
past,
definitely doesn't. He's fucking hard.
Bro, if he pulled a gun out, I'd be like, what the fuck?
But like because like the only other bosses we ever seen do that were like the second sister, or is it the ninth sister? God damn, I don't know how to count. You know, the big one.
The ninth.
The
ninth.
Yeah. Ninth sister. Okay, I figured. So like with the ninth sister, and even her deal is like she doesn't switch between single and double bladed. She's like first stance is single bladed. You get her she gets mad, pulls out double bladed, and that's really about it. She never like switches in between. Yeah. So I really thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That like we got someone that's pretty close to how Cal fights. Of like, you know, for the most part, when people play, they don't stay to one stance every fight. They'll switch around a lot. And it's cool fighting someone like equally like that. So that was cool. And I would actually make an argument. I think that final fight against Dagon is probably the hardest. Not the final boss. He's not the final boss. I think that fight is the hardest fight in the game. Even more than the next two that come after it.
As a person who's gone through Grandmaster, I can definitely tell you it was not that fight.
I haven't finished Grandmaster yet, but I did just finish that fight, and I mean it's pretty difficult. I remember, I mean I haven't had too much time to like between. I think I just got to that fight
Yeah.
Friday, but it was Friday night I got to it, and I was already a couple bevies in, so maybe that didn't help either. But then I came around and I finished it today before this podcast. But I didn't get to play it like at all this weekend. I think I probably could have forced my way through it at that moment. But I mean, it was hard. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see as we move forward.
And I do want to clarify, hardest main story fight, because obviously there's some other fights in the game that, some side content that's bullshit, but...
I definitely think there is a main story fight that I think, like, at least on Grandmaster, I found to be much more difficult than the Dagon fight. Although the Dagon fight was cool. I really did find that the blaster stances worked really well against him, even with all of his stance switching and shit.
I don't know why, for some reason, I didn't want to pull the blaster out against him, because of lore reasons. I'm like, I want to beat him as a Jedi. And with the big heavy sword. But yeah, so moving on from Dagon, you do beat him, but the game's not over. Because the big kind of, your spoiler warning was earlier. The big plot twist of this is Bo does betray you, and he kills.
You could have seen this coming.
I actually didn't, because I was like, all right, we beat Dagon, we got the compass, we're gonna go to Tanalorr, and it'd be the end of the game.
Bro, no,
maybe it's because I'm just a dumb little boy or whatever.
A little boy.
I'm just a dumb little boy. But, I didn't see anything. And then when it happened, I was like,
I think it's fair. I feel like it was kind of obvious though, at some point. Especially once you beat Dagon and the game doesn't roll the credits, it's like, shit, I mean, it's not Marin that's going to betray us.
I thought it was just the epilogue.
You haven't even gotten to Tanalorr. It's like, oh, game's not over, because you haven't even gotten to the damn planet they've all been, gushing about this whole damn time.
Yeah. So...
no, man, I saw the writing on the wall that Dagon was going to betray us, within
Bode.
the first 10 minutes of the game.
You mean...
Sorry, not Dagon. Yeah, Bode. Who gives a shit? Bode irritates me, not because of what he does. It's just because I feel like he's a complete waste in this story, in my honest opinion. I feel like everything you wanted to do narratively could have worked with Dagon, and then you just had Bode here, who's like, what's your deal? I have a daughter you haven't seen, and you got to see her till, the third act. And then it's like trying to debate you into fucking sympathizing with this guy. It's like, I feel like it felt like it was trying too hard to make me like the dude, and as a result it made me like him less, especially since it's established early on that he's new to the team. One of the first things he does is hey, did you know I have a daughter? Let me show you this picture of my daughter and talk to you, Cal, about my daughter, though you only know me for 10 minutes. And I'm thinking okay, people who do this in films and stuff like that, there's only two reasons they do this. A, they're going to die in the next 10 minutes, or B, they're going to betray you. And I felt like I saw the writing on the wall really early on that Dagon was going to betray me. Plus, I get getting irritated every time he would steal one of my fucking kills. So it didn't really help things at all.
Again, I've said this you still get the XP for it. It's not, it doesn't actually take it.
Oh, I know. But it still makes me mad. It's I didn't need your fucking help. The worst example of it was on the Lucre Hulk when you fight the big hammer dude for the first time. I'm like, yes, fuck yes, let's go. So I'm just fighting this dude, beating the shit out of him. And then all of a sudden, Bo just jumps. It's like, no, get out of here. I was having a good time. So yeah, that's I don't like Bo.
Yeah.
I really could not get
So slow.
And like I said,
fuck you for having a daughter, you son of a bitch. Who the fuck who has children nowadays?
In this economy?
In this economy?
It's just it felt like maybe it's just me, but it felt too obvious, like from the start, that Bode was going to betray you. And when I think about it, I'm like, I don't really get why, because it's like it feels like it's like they needed a reason to turn Cal more towards like the dark side. It's like, well, we need someone to betray Cal, but we can't have it someone be too close to him. Like if we had like Seer or Marin do it, like it would.
That way, that wouldn't really make sense, like narratively.
I'm sure there's ways they could figure out how to make it make sense, but like at the same time, it's like, well, they're kind of like our legacy characters. We can't treat them like that, so we want to introduce a whole new character that suddenly becomes best buds with Cal and then betrays him. Granted, I don't ever feel like the relationship ever got that close, but it was just weird to me.
The most of guys, like a few times, like he called him brother, but it's like I don't think Cal ever called him that.
Yeah. He kept pulling that shit too. It's just like, where's this coming from, bro? And like all that stuff about like, oh, like you like Marin? Don't you think you should do something with her? And it's just like,
that was actually the one part I was like, maybe he's not evil because I was like, he's a bro. He's a bro trying to help a bro out.
That further solidified it to me. It's just like, what? It's not your fucking business, man,
bro.
It's like.
You hitting it?
You're
I feel like that's the most guy thing to ask is, hey, you hitting that?
No, like the thing though is like he's acting like, oh, I've been like part. He feels like his interactions where he tries to be with Cal is he's acting like he's been part of the Mantis for like years, when it's just like you haven't.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old.
Yeah, so like I really think Bode was like a fucking waste. Like I get what they're doing with him, but it doesn't mean I actually like it.
Fair enough, yeah.
It's also one of the reasons why this game's ending kind of feels a bit like lackluster to me. Like whenever we talked about like story issues, like I love about like because like I feel like Dagon could have been the same way that Trilla was in the first game, because it was more than just Trilla being bad and Cal being good or whatever. It was like both come from very similar circumstances, and you could easily see where both of them could have switched places, and you just understood that like it's heartbreaking to see what happened to Trilla because of like everything she had like gone through, and like you see it affect not just her but also like how it impacted Seer and everyone else. And you just don't get that same level of thought here with Bode. Bode is just, I have a daughter. I'm going to fight for her, even though I keep doing force push moves that nearly kill her 50 times. It seems so fucking stupid, to be frank.
I will say, in defense of Randy, I kind of also saw that like Bode was going to betray you. It was also spoiled to me because I'm on a lot of like, when this game came out and I was posting stuff, I was all about like the Star Wars TikTok. But what did actually genuinely surprise me, and what was like, at least like gameplay wise is a cool move, and I was not seeing coming, was when after he betrays you, it's like, okay, I'm gonna chase him. It was a cool sequence. And then the first time like you kind of tussle with him and he force pushes you, that was the first time I was like, whoa. Whoa!
Yeah, was at least that twist cool for you, Seth?
That was a decent twist. It's one of those twists where it's just like, I knew he was going to be bad. I just didn't know how bad. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a cool twist. I did like that. It just probably should have been used on a better character.
Damn. Oh, that's fun.
Bode really does drag down this whole story for me. I'm sorry. He just does.
I don't know. I like the twist. I can kind of I see what they were. I like what they were going for. Where it's like the whole theme is both him and Dagon were people who like went to extremes for things they loved, and that's what Cal's fear is that he's going to the extreme for this. Except with Dagon, it's Tanalorr. Bode, it's his daughter, and it happens to be Tanalorr because it's the safe place. I think, I like Dagon as like probably a more like compelling villain. I'm not gonna sit here and say I hate Bode as much as you just would off. But I don't know. He's okay. I think I would have agreed. I probably would have liked it if Dagon was the if Dagon was more developed and was the actual final villain, maybe even team him and Bode up. Like I won't like.
Nah, it doesn't make sense for them to team up.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's what I mean.
I'm
Like,
fine with how it went, but like I said, maybe that's just because I'm not expecting, and I'm not looking for every little twist or whatever. But like I said,
I'm not looking for the twist, man. It's just like when you've seen a lot of this shit, you kind of recognize the patterns, and it's like,
I guess that's what I get for not being a cultured person. I just live within my little bubble.
you know what, Randy? That's stay uncultured. Stay uncultured.
See, I got to enjoy this so much.
Yeah.
no, it's not like a swipe against you, Randy. It's just like,
oh yeah, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, it's just
that you're an idiot and Seth's smarter than you. Is what he's trying to say. No, I'm messing with you.
No, the thing is, like, especially coming from Respawn, I don't know. I would just expected something a little smarter than this. Than like, what we got, because like we could I think my bigger I think I kind of touched on it, but my bigger issue with the story is in general, like, I kind of questioned the point of this, because it's one of those weird things where when you have like you're revisiting a character who for all intents and purposes has already kind of fulfilled their arc, you kind of have to keep coming up with like, all right, what's their main thing to keep them going now? And it's always like hard to retread that. It's like, well, we have to make Cal go through another special arc, and it very rarely do you ever get to do it in a way that like makes it like as good as the first time around. I felt like the first story was so personal. I like the smaller scale of that first story because it felt more impactful to like what everyone was going through in that game, and I felt more personally connected. Because like I wondered, I was like, did I blow Jedi Fallen Order's story out of proportion? But when I got to replay through it, I was like, no, this still like resonates pretty well with me. Scenes like Cal, like, like seeing him as a kid, where like after his master just died, and he's like kind of just like losing his shit in the escape pod. Like those little moments. No moment in this game ever hit me like that. And I don't know. I feel like by going grander, they lost some of like the heart that made Fallen Order work for me. That's just my opinion. I really think it kind of comes down to personal preference, because obviously for you guys, like you there's something about this story that like really works for you guys.
I think I like the story because part of it also is because like it doesn't retrace the same ground. It's not this. To me, it doesn't feel like the same story again. Because the last game was like Cal finding his footing again and like realizing who he is. This one is, how far do I push it? How far do I take my passions and all? So I think I like Cal's development, and he's not retracing the same steps he did in the first one. He's still growing and expanding on like his character.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I do appreciate at least they're not trying to do like story part 2. Like I said, more of my issue with the game, with the game's narrative, is just that like it is going for bigger. It's like, well, we're now big Star Wars now. We got to swing for big Star Wars home runs now. So and by going more grander on the scale, it inevitably loses some of like the little character stuff that I really appreciate about that first game.
Well, speaking of, let's keep the story going, because once Bode does betray you, there is another pretty big moment in the game before you do get to fight him. And, well, this moment, as Seth said, it was kind of obvious that Seer and Cordova are probably not making it to Jedi Survivor 3. That moment where, after, you fight Bode for the first time without healing, and you play as Seer, that moment was cool as shit. Part of me,
badass.
That moment was super cool. She has totally different. She has different moves from Cal for stars, which I thought like she should be a 1-for-1, but no, different moves, a completely different super. I thought that moment was super cool that you actually got to play as this character. Part of me wish she didn't just have a standard blue lightsaber. I kind of wish she would have either like a yellow one because she's all about the text, or even a green one because I feel her is more focused to the Force. But that's nitpicky Star Wars stuff.
What it is like what's cool about her stance is like really it's like it is a lot of the same things you see in Cal, but it's like remixed. Like for example, like her Force throw functions less like the standard one, and it functions more like the ultimate version of the dual wield version where it like locks on and hits multiple enemies. And then whenever she does like her Y attack, instead of like the standard like swipe across like with a single blade like Cal does, it does the double bladed version where it like orbits around her. Really like kind of neat ways of showing that I guess that she's like a master in these different stances, which is I think the point of the scene, which works really well, is that it's showing like Cal's really powerful here because he's a Jedi Knight. But this is the difference between a Jedi Knight and a Jedi Master. I think you really feel that with like Seer, especially whenever she's like ripping dropships out of the sky with her Force powers.
She has
and she's like pulling down fucking ceilings and shit.
She has another similar one as well, where if you do the hold Y, like that usually with Cal when he has the double blade, he can only do it with the double blade, and he'll spin forward and like draw people in as he does this like rising uppercut move. Seer does it with one saber, and she just like stabs up, and people will come forward, and it's super cool.
And then you can do the same like kind of follow up where you like come down and ground pound and like send the shockwave out.
Exactly.
And it's like it's really neat. I think, and it's like. I kind of want to skip ahead to this part, but it's like because like one of the things that's frustrated me about this is not the game itself, it's the you fucking Star Wars community nerds, because your reaction to like her fight against, spoiler alert, when she fights against Darth Vader, you fuckers need to like stop sucking Vader's dick. I like Vader as much as the next guy, but he can afford to like take an L in a couple of fights. He still wins. And you guys are like, oh, she was a bit too powerful here. She might have been too powerful. It's like, nah, man. Like, obviously, because like
I thought she was appropriate. I don't know where you're hearing about people bitching about being like, oh, she's too powerful. She shouldn't have been able to even take Vader.
Go look. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, no, like they said, like, oh, this fight was too close. Vader should have mopped the floor with her. And it's like, first off, it's pretty clear that these people have never been like seen like how a real fight goes, because it's just like. There's no power scaling in like real life fights and shit like that. There's none of that shit. It's like, oh, I bet this guy beat them. It's like some days you just have an off day. Like I think Vader was just having an off day.
It has been. I mean, also like for Vader, this is the first time he's fought a master in a good minute.
Yeah,
he hasn't.
If he's hunting down Jedi at this point, it's going to be like Padawans.
Yeah, like kids
survived.
that just happen, or people who just figured out how to use the Force. Like Cal or Ezra. The last time he had a good fight was probably in Rebels when he fought Ahsoka, and that was. Or wait, has that happened yet?
I think this would be this would be before Rebels.
Then that hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah, it would be before Rebels, but does it take place before Kenobi? Or it takes place within the same year, but it's.
So there could be an argument that he hasn't
before or after.
There could be an argument he hasn't fought Kenobi yet. There's not. I don't remember the exact.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think he has fought Kenobi yet.
Like rematched, obviously.
And it's just like, listen, I like all the Vader scenes. I like it when he pops off, but it's okay to have it sometimes where, like I said, I don't get it. He's still lost. It's just like, he's still lost. He still won, but people are like, oh, it was too close of a fight. It's like, Vader can't always be like 100% guys. Like you gotta like sometimes it's like
he had a bad sleep. His back hurt that day.
He was not expecting him out. He kind of was. He was like, it's probably just gonna be Cal again. It's gonna be another night. I'll kill him this time. It'll be a day. And he was just kind of caught off guard. And by stance 3, he's like, okay, real shit. Like I'm on fire, and this is bringing back some memories that I'd rather not be at.
I'm not a fan.
I'm not a fan of this. And then
I would say that's something I really like about Vader's fight is the first time I fought him on just the the hard difficulty when I played through this game, like the Master.
Okay, so we all played on Jedi
Master.
Jedi Master.
So is it Master?
It's Master because the really big one is Grandmaster.
Yeah. All of us fought on Jedi Master.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. How appropriate.
so on master difficulty, like when you fight Vader, like the first couple of phases, like this is easy.
Yeah, this isn't that bad. Yeah.
Because it's like all his attacks are very easily read, and okay, I'll wait till I talk about Grandmaster for this, but like I'm pairing all these attacks, like yeah, he's not that bad. And then you get into a second phase, and then he like picks up some books and slam it in your face, and about one shots you. Or he gets like just a couple of good 2 swings on Seer, and she goes down. It's like, oh shit! Like I do feel like
he's trying. He's trying.
Yeah, no, like the first half of the fight is he's kind of like just toying with Seer, but then like the second half he's like, all right, I got to sit up in my gamer chair.
It's like, hey,
leans forward.
Yeah.
The gamer.
And then this is what I meant to get at, is like on Grandmaster, he is definitely like the hardest fight in the game, because like on Grandmaster, you basically cannot make a mistake. You have to be perfect, because like on New Game Plus with like Grandmaster, you obviously like the health upgrades and like all the stim packs makes it very easy to get through. But when you're playing a Seer, you don't have those benefits. You just get her base health. So basically, Vader can pretty much 1 to 2 shot you. A decent amount, but against Vader, not enough.
Yeah,
there is no amount. Yeah, I guess that is true. Seer does not have. Seer will only have 4 because she doesn't have stim. She doesn't have BD. She just has force heal. Which force heal is back up. God, sequel fans be upset. Shut up. Force heal's been in everything. Shut up.
Remember
Rip
people
Qui-Gon.
Remember the people who watch the podcast. We like Star Wars. We don't like you.
I don't. I want to point out Seth is the one that said that. The Fresh Podcast does not endorse that. The Fresh Podcast loves its fans, especially the ones that have listened to 2 hours of this.
But if you're like just like a complete nut, whatever. But like the Grandmaster fight is definitely.
Seth hates the fans. Drew loves the fans.
I hate the really anal Star Wars fans. That's the ones I hate.
Randy loves anal. What are you saying?
That's a stereotype.
He just said I do.
No, I said boo.
Oh shoot! I thought you said I do. Never mind.
That's a stereotype, Drew. I want you to know that.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's move on. We've gotten very off track.
The fight is the hardest fight in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, he is for sure.
So I don't know why people are just like. Meh. They're just being dumb Star Wars fans. I say as I'm a dumb Star Wars fan, but you get the point.
I will say one thing that it made me notice is on Grandmaster they narrowed down the parry timings like to a T.
Oh yeah, they're way harder on this than they are in just Master.
It's a lot more difficult. What I liked about Vader fight though is actually the parry window is very wide on him, and I was like, oh, like why would they do it? And I thought about it, it's like, well, one, it's going to still be a very tough fight, especially on Grandmaster, where like only 2 swipes from Vader and you're dead. But also, it made me think like, oh, it's Seer, she's a Jedi Master, whereas Cal has to try really hard to have good parry timing, I guess. Seer, it's like, yeah, whatever. Like I could just kind of throw this up whenever and it parries. Which is kind of cool to me.
Yeah.
Like it's a neat little detail showing like the power gap between her and the Cal.
Yeah.
The Seer section is cool. I do think it is like it was unfortunately not a thing that wasn't entirely a surprise for me, but like I did think So I did know that Vader was in. The thing I saw was not even like a clip saying what happened. It just showed like Vader and Seer kind of staring down each other. I'm like, well, I now know Vader shows up in the game. And as I told Drew earlier, is like people don't survive round 2 with Vader.
Well, Obi-Wan did.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. You know what? Obi-Wan did. Unless your name is Obi-Wan and Luke, you don't survive round 2 with Vader.
No.
How about that?
Most don't survive round 1.
I was lucky enough that I blasted, or didn't like blast through the game, but I went pretty much like silent on
on
all socials and stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
And same with like YouTube for the most part. I was lucky I was able to like play the game for like 3 days straight.
But I didn't know you played a Seer was the key point. And I was like, oh, okay, this is actually really fucking cool. So I really like the Seer section. That was a really dope part.
Yeah, that was cool. But yeah, moving on, because this is already a very long podcast, but let's talk about the actual final boss himself. And we already talked about his character, and Seth has very much expressed his opinions about that. We understand how you feel about it. But yes, the actual final boss, you figure out a way to get to Tanalorr, and the actual final boss itself is Bode. It's a... I do like, though, that we all... Well, like, not like, but I'm glad that we all agree, though, at the very least. He's not the hardest fight. But it's kind of okay.
I think he's still a worthy fight.
He's hard. Yeah, he's difficult.
Yeah.
So that's like maybe for you casual, but
no, like I think it's kind of one thing I found was interesting with Bode is for some reason, whenever you do the first fight where you're supposed to lose against him, because you don't have BD1 there.
I actually would also held down, but like once you get like halfway, the game's just like, and you're done.
Yeah, and like you don't have like BD1 there or whatever. Like whenever I saw he does like a blaster stance, it did make me feel like next time I fight Bode, I'm gonna try to out blaster him. So I did use just blaster stance against him, which this was weird that I noticed, and I especially confirmed this on Grandmaster difficulty. His first phase is not a really good place to do the blaster stance when he's actually using it. But whenever you get into a second phase where he ditches the blaster and just goes full on just sword, and he even starts throwing out some of Dagon's moves where he like starts cutting big, like, I don't know what you call them, force swaps.
Force slashes.
Yeah.
When's Cal gonna figure out how to do that? I feel like this is like the third enemy where people have done that to him.
Yeah, that fight was actually like way easier with the blaster stance. I don't know why. Like, but it was just like, So like on Grandmaster, the first phase I used crossguard, which was really damn effective actually, because
that's what I did
anytime
too,
you shot a blaster at me, I just fucking
hit it back.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, Marin will distract him so you can get a big Y attack in, and it's like, oh, that's a quarter.
Yeah, but then like switching to the blaster stance for the second phase, I just stayed on top of him. Even when he was doing a big, because I did the same thing with Dagon. When he was doing a big force charge up move, I was just on top of him, just like stabs, shoot, stab, shoot, stab, shoot, and then just jumped out of the way at the right moment, and then just kept doing that. Bode was, I had a much easier time with Bode on Grandmaster than I did on like the normal difficulty.
Yeah. I still think it's a fun fight. I actually had the opposite thing with you. Once he shot Cordova and like led to Seer's death, I stopped using the blaster because I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like lore accurate, because like Cal's like, I'm not gonna use this thing anymore. Cal still uses it. He shoots like 2 more people in the cutscenes. But I'm like, no, Cal's gonna be just regular Jedi, because I'm like, I can't. That was a gift from him. One kind of thing where I realized I also kind of skipped over this, and it's actually like one of my like favorite like story details because it reacted to gameplay, is once you're chasing down Bode, like, and right before like your final fight, Cal's super move changes quite dramatically. Instead of just like the force freeze.
Well, we kind of miss a whole thing. Like we go and like chase down Bode.
To the like
even
ISB
the final
base.
fight. Yeah, we go to the whole ISB base, and like we kind of are skipping over that a bit.
A little bit, yeah. That's why I'm like backtracking to like the main part of that. Like, we're not gonna talk about every aspect of the story, but I think the big moment from chasing Bo to that ISB base is the fact that Cal's new super move is him embracing the dark side, which is kind of wild to me. Like, that was kind of the big moment to me of like, we're doing this. And I think what was even more wild is even after that level, like after you do that and Marin like has to calm you down, Cal's super move is still embrace the dark side. Like, even when you go in the overworld,
the rest of the game.
For the rest of the game, that's your move. Like, that's what Cal does, and you're just okay with that. And that's wild to me, is like that's like a gameplay thing, and that's why I'm really interested in the next game of like how much of Cal's moveset is it gonna be like you can upgrade into the light side and get your more traditional stuff, or you can kind of get the dark side stuff and just make, it might make the game easier, but maybe like lead to different outcomes. But that's kind of more like, that's wishful thinking. I don't think they're really gonna do that, but it'd be cool. And I
feel like they have a set story in mind with Cal. They're not gonna.
They're not. Yeah, they won't have multiple endings, but I think it could lead to cool things. I even got me to the point, like I've been saying, kind of want to play it like almost lore accurate, or I would be very hesitant to like use the dark side move because I'm like, I don't want Cal doing this. I don't like him embracing the dark side. I used it very sparingly, like unless like obviously a lot on like the ISB base, but like even in the like open world, I was like, I don't know if I want Cal to do this kind of stuff.
I just went all in on it.
I'm sure you did. Yes, like okay.
Yeah.
I would use it when, you know, I was like, I'm kind of in a tight spot. I would still use it.
You embrace the dark side because the lead's not strong enough. But I thought that was a super cool moment, and I like that it's even implemented in the final boss, like where Bode's force choking Marin, and like Cal like kind of passes out for a little bit, and to respawn you have to embrace the dark side.
Yeah.
I thought at least story-wise, I think that's super cool, and like I'm really interested to see like what that turns into, how much of that is going to be brought back in the next game, of how deep Cal's going to get into that.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like that fight, even though like it's not the most fun boss fight like to fight, because I think that's either Ravis or like Dagon's last fight. It's still like lore-wise, I think pretty cool to do. But yeah, I think that is all the main boss fights. Unless you guys have anything before we start talking about the side content and extra little bits before we wrap up. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Bode's last fight, or really any of the big main story boss fights?
Did you know that whenever you have like the dark side, you can actually do the whole like force pull thing to like droids, and whenever you do like the typical execute move like you would do on regular troopers, instead of Cal stabbing through them, he just like crushes them, like force crushes them.
Oh, he does the Luke Hall. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that Cal crushes
you can do
them.
That you can especially do it to the fucking stupid security droids, and I got so much like catharsis out of that.
Sith, you would definitely be a Sith, my friend.
I think that part's neat. I wasn't really blown away by it. You can kind of, like I said, you can kind of see it coming because the story is definitely like setting this up where like Cal is going down a much darker, things are being pushed onto him, forcing him to take a much darker path. So it's another one of the things where it's like you can kind of see it coming. Not that it diminishes it; it's just kind of like it's neat, you know. I do appreciate, especially since it's like it's, you know what, it's keeping in Respawn's like with Respawn's philosophy when it comes to developing this game. Because I remember in Fallen Order, like they said like, hey, I remember them way back when people were asking like, can you use dark side powers or something like that. They deliberately said no, because in the story we don't want it to just be like a gameplay thing. We want it to be like an actual reflection of like the character. So they felt like it would be weird at that point to just basically be like, yeah, Cal just has dark side powers. So I appreciate that like they stuck with their guns and they kept it here, where you don't really get that dark side ability until like pretty much over halfway through the game.
Oh, you're like toward
and even then they don't give you like force lightning and like stuff like that.
Nah.
Yeah, they just kind of make the screen red.
And you hit really hard.
Yeah. I tell you what though, that dark side force power really trivializes a lot of bosses. So
I mean, it's exactly, in regards to gameplay, it works exactly how it's kind of like said in the lore. Like when Yoda's talking about like, the dark side is quicker and easier, more seductive, and like definitely because it could be like, this made things a lot easier being able to embrace the dark side for certain side bosses and stuff like that.
So like it's a cool mechanic. I do think that, I think it's one of those things where maybe I'll better appreciate it when Jedi 3 comes out and we get like more of a conclusion to the story, because like right now thing just kind of feels like, well, we're gonna have to tread water like on like reveals about Tana lore and where Cal goes with the dark side. We just kind of have to like sprinkle hints in of like what it could be for now, because we're not going to touch on it until 3. So in some ways, the sequel does kind of run in place because it has to. Because it has to leave things open. That's always the kind of the curse of the middle child in a trilogy.
But, I mean, to be fair, it's if there's going to be one series that you would hope would break that trope, it is Star Wars, which is, the original trilogy. Which one's the best one? It's Empire, the second one. The middle one. So,
yeah.
You'd see. I still like the moment. I thought it was really cool. But that is... I think enough about the main bosses. Let's kind of talk a little bit more about the extra side stuff, not main campaign, because a lot of this game's about exploring, finding different areas, cool. And let's kind of talk about the biggest elephant in the room or lizard in the room first, because I
think he's a frog.
The fucking
more like not necessarily a lizard.
The fucking toad. This is the biggest, for whatever reason, this is, and probably
this is the true final boss of the game.
Yeah, that's probably the most, controversial part of this game is Ogdo Bogdo, and in this game, the spawn of Ogdo Bogdo. Because I've talked to my friends, and they're like, man, F that boss, I hate this game, it sucks, it's terrible, and then it frustrates them to no one. Well, I mean, it's optional, or, you can, lower the difficulty. Obviously, I'm just toying with them. But it's, Ogdo Bogdo and Spawn of Ogdo Bogdo are almost purposely not designed they're purposely designed to be frustrating and difficult and, needlessly hard. Multiple moves that can one-shot you. Incredibly awkward timings, not like other bosses. And
really weird hitboxes.
Yeah, really weird hitboxes.
As far as I know, Ogdo, the Spawn of Ogdo Bogdo, whatever, the same thing. And the Rancor are the only 2 bosses in the game that have one-shot kill moves.
Yep, and then they're the only bosses where you have to fight 2 of them at the same time in these bonus missions.
Rancor was nowhere near as bad, though. Rancor is so slow and easily telegraphed, and doesn't have a shit hitbox.
No, Rancor's a bit easier. Ogdo is that is frustrating. I remember the first time I found it. The sheer terror I saw when I read that name, and I was like, oh dear God, no. Oh my God, no. And it popped out. I was like, I just want a shiny thing at the middle of a platform. No. But
yeah, I mean, when Will was there watching me, and this is a bit of an inside joke. I had him eventually play through Jedi Fallen Order, and I didn't tell him about Ogdo Bogdo, and he fell in the pit. And he's like, no, I'm going to get this person. And he's like, he finally killed him. He's like, man, fuck Ogdo Bogdo. And then you find a similar Ogdo Bogdo species. I'm forgetting what they're called. But you find another one, but it's not Ogdo Bogdo. Yeah. And he just happens upon him. He's like, is that fucking Ogdo Bogdo? And so he's sitting there with me as we're going through this and just kind of exploring. And we fall into the pit, and both were like, is that Ogdo Bogdo? Shit.
And it was.
More or less, yeah.
What really gets me about this fight, too, is he is purposely a more shit-designed version of, the original Ogdo. Because
he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, because not only we talk about hitboxes and stuff like that, but moves that would work on the original Ogdo Bogdo don't work here. For example, you can't stun or parry him like you could in the first game, because you can definitely do that. You go back to the first game, go back to Fallen Order. You can do parries and stun.
No, I won't.
Ogdo for free hits.
I fought that boss enough times.
Yeah, and then also you can cut off his tongue when he
I
throws
was
it
so
out.
upset when you couldn't do that in this game. Oh my God, I tried it so many times to cut the tongue off.
Yeah.
You can't.
And I feel that's kind of the point is they're trying to really demonstrate how much more difficult this is, basically getting rid of the strategies of taking away his one-shot kills and stuff like this. He is by far a shit design boss, but I do kind of agree. It's that's probably part of the joke. We made this boss purposely shit.
Dude, let me tell you guys and the audience at home my full strategy on how to make Ogdo Bogdo easier. At least the way I did it. Because this is also how I got good at the blaster stance. So I would go down there, sometimes kill the droids, sometimes not. But I would purposely just kind of walk backwards. And for whatever reason, this doesn't work on the Rancors, but it does work on him. The full charge shot will stun Ogdo no matter, and when I mean stun, I just mean like he'll flinch and stop whatever attack he's doing. It will, so what I did was just, you could full charge your gun, shoot, 1-2, backstep, and you will be free. He doesn't have a move fast enough to hit you. And you just keep repeating this until you're out of blaster shots, and then you have to fight him normally. But that will get him pretty much to half health. And once, obviously later when you start hitting him more and getting more shots, you can repeat the process. So that was kind of my cheese way to get around him. And I don't feel bad because it's a cheese boss. And this strategy also does work, as we mentioned on the secret bonus. You just have to have the ricochet shot to hit both of them. But yeah, when I first found Ogdo Bogdo, I remember Randy was in the call, and I also remember since I hadn't started the game yet. This is at the time right before we were recording our BioShock thing, where I was frustrated. I was so angry. I was like, God dang it! I just gotta record a damn podcast. So the only time I stopped to record the podcast, and then immediately when we were done, Seth was in the call more. I went back to fighting him. I spent all night. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I had finally beaten him. And my upstairs neighbors probably hate me because of how loud I was. Like, yes! I made a clip of it. I sent it to Will. I was like, I did it! And I love that the reward is the poncho from the first game. It's just the icing on the cake for this boss. And this is just the developers going, yeah, this boss is dumb, and it's kind of a silly joke reward, but this is our love letter, or I guess our very emotionally abusive letter to the fans of just it's a fun little thing. It's cute. It's a nice reference, and I really enjoy that he's in here, even though he's a piece of shit boss. But, oh goodness. That's a lot about Ogdo Bogdo. Unless you guys have more to say about that toad. I know he's a frog, but I don't respect him to call him what he actually is.
I think you could use toad or frog interchangeably on him because, more importantly, he's a space amphibian.
I think you
Who the fuck knows what he is?
I think you can call him a bitch, and that'd be fine too.
There you go.
I wouldn't stop you. But yeah, there's some other, like you said, there's some other things. I really like the inclusion of the Force Echoes, these little bonus rooms, kind of Devil May Cry style.
Actually, they're Force Tears, not Echoes.
Force Tears, right? Echoes are the things that give you stories. Yeah, I was like, that's cool. That's a fun little extra thing. And yeah, there's just there's a lot of fun extra little side story context and almost dungeon kind of things. There's one area that was really cool where it doesn't tell you the mechanic that these weird orange explosive things can blow up walls until the end, and you're like, oh, I could have gone, but you could have done it at any time during the puzzle, but the game just didn't tell you. But if you're smart enough and maybe just or just was throwing it everywhere, you might have accidentally figured it out. So it's a cool little things, and I really like that particular kind of dungeon area because there's a lot of raiders that have stolen lightsabers and a really good secret at the very end of it. So, yeah, that's kind of.
Are we not spoiling that secret?
I guess, yeah, I mean, we spoiled everything else, but I wasn't planning on it if you would have talked about what it is.
I mean, I could just mention it because I just did it fairly recently, and I thought it was kind of neat. Like you said, you go into the funk and I come across these purple electrified walls that's not immediately clear on what you can do to get rid of them. And at each wall, you kind of confront these Bedlam raiders who are kind of taunting Cal. There's 3 different ones. When you get to the very end of the dungeon, you realize that I can be able to use these weird mouth things that can melt these walls down, and you end up in an arena where you have to fight 3 of those Bedlam raiders at the same time, which was a pretty neat fight. whenever I went through on Grandmaster, I actually did that section again, but this time I remember I could do that. You can actually fight each individual raider at those spots, so you don't have to do like the 3 for McDeefer fight at the end.
See, I went into that with very few stim packs and died to those 3. So before trying to go back and fight them all 3, I was like, let me just fast travel to the start of the dungeon and do this significantly easier.
Yeah. It's like a little neat thing. I do like the general side content. One little side tangent, not a tangent. I think this is neat. If I was Cal, I'd be way more pissed. There is something about like the fact that these Bedlam Raiders, these guys who have no force training whatsoever, are using lightsabers would piss me the fuck off as a Jedi. I'd be like, it seems like the ultimate sign of just utter disrespect. I also like the little detail of like, okay, they don't have force powers. How are they going to stand up to a Jedi with like a lightsaber? Like, not only they have like a couple little tricks up their sleeve, but I like all like the little gadgets. Like, yeah, some of them is just like, yeah, they have like a jetpack, kind of like the first game, so they can fly around. But I also thought it was cool. It's like some of them use grappling hooks in the fight. Some of them use like invisible tactical cloaking shit.
Yeah,
like that's kind of it's a cool way of like, how do you bring these guys up into a point where they could be a worthy fight against a Jedi, even though they're using lightsabers and they're not Force users.
It's
cool.
Like
that's really neat.
I also really like that they did the thing that everyone likes to joke about is like, why don't they ever just turn the saber off in mid-fight and then stab them? Like, turn it back on. And these motherfuckers do that.
Yeah. That's illegal.
Actually, only one of them does, and that's the type that uses the double-bladed stance, which is even cooler because it just kind of adds to how different they all feel. Because there's like the cross-guard one, the single-bladed one, the double-bladed one. Like it's really neat that they all have like their own sort of strategies. Those were my favorite fights in the game, and it's kind of a cool way of making a consistent way to fight enemies with lightsabers, so you can have more classical lightsaber fights without having it to be like justified as like it's a dark Jedi or Sith or whatever.
Just a guy
like,
with a saber.
I thought, yeah, and it's cool. And honestly, like I feel like they do a really good job of setting up the Bedlam Raiders as worthy enough opponents to where it doesn't feel like you're just fighting children who just found a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like these guys know what's up. They know what they're doing, especially since you can assume that like they've received some sort of like training from Ravis, and perhaps by this point even Dagon himself a little bit. Like, and you know, this is another little thing, but it does lend more credit to the idea that like Dagon could pose a serious threat to the galaxy. Because think about it this way. In just a short amount of time that Dagon came back, gave these raiders lightsabers and trained them, they were a credible enough threat that they were going one-on-one with like the Empire themselves. Yeah. What if Dagon did get to fulfill his plan of taking like people to Tanalorr and training them to burn down the galaxy, as he put it? Like it really does feel like he could have pulled it off. Like it's very much possible.
Yeah. Probably, because if he was back for what, 2 days and like already being the, like he even says like, you guys let these guys beat you?
I love that. I love the way he delivered that. Yeah. It's just like it's so disgusting. Even though he hates the Jedi Council, it's like, these guys, these are the people that beat us. It's like he's so disgusted.
That was a cool moment. Almost makes me want to say like, I think it would have been too much like the first game, but it almost makes me wonder like, if him and Vader obviously Vader wins that fight, but if him and Vader got into an altercation, like what would that look like? Of just like, I don't know, like would Vader be okay with him, or would Vader just be like, he's close enough to a Jedi, fuck him?
Yeah, I think Vader, obviously, he's like, there's only one macho man in this town, and it's like, me. So he'd probably take Dagon.
There's a character limit on who can have the red lightsaber. You're dead. I let the Inquisitor slide because I can kill any of them in one shot, but you're not staying around for long.
Yeah, it's really cool. I like they're my favorite enemy types. One thing I forgot to mention, and I think is really cool, is the Purge Troopers in this game. How they treat them is so much fun to show how much Cal has grown since the first game.
Yeah, they're so much easier, it feels.
they're so much easier now, and they just like drop you in like so many of them in like the first mission, and Cal's just kind of going through them like regular enemy types. And I think that's really neat, that just to show how much Cal has grown, and to an extent like the player as well, because you fought these guys before, you know what to do against them.
God, those dude. Sometimes those like the Bedlam like veterans, I think is what they're called, like the more experienced ones with like the jetpack. Sometimes those guys trip me up. I was like, oh, you are stronger than I realized. A little too too overconfident.
I really like the Bedlam Raiders as a new enemy faction.
Yeah, I think they're good. They're cool, dude. Part of me kind of wished, and this is again High Republic, kind of wish they were just like Nihil that have just like survived for this long. But that has its own differences, because now they normally use gas to fight, and also like why would Dagon side with them? But it would have been a cool nod, but I'm almost more happy that it didn't.
Yeah.
That said, that is a lot. Before we go off, I will ask you both: is there anything else, either with side content or really anything else with Survivor, that you guys want to talk about before we get into the fresh pick? Randy, we haven't heard from you in a minute, so I'll start with you.
I know you guys won't be able to experience it, but I look forward to the mods that are coming for this game. There's quite a large number of mods for the first game, and being built on the same engine, and considering there were already mods within the first week of the game being out, I expect there to be a large community for this game and mods and stuff like that. So, but in regards to the game itself, I think it's still, despite its technical flaws, which we touched on a little at the beginning, they're continuously patching it, and I think patch 5 just came out not too long ago. And I still had a little bit of a hiccup in the middle of a cutscene, but it is getting better for each patch, so I'm sure it will get there relatively soon. Like I said, they've been patching it like crazy. So
yeah, I don't know about relatively soon. I think more like more like 3 to 4 months soon. But like, yeah, I do think like I do believe that like Respawn will get there eventually. I'll if you want, I will go more than you guys. I will be digging into more of the technical aspects when you get to me. But yeah.
Well, we're at you right now, so go.
Oh, okay, cool. Randy's all done. You got nothing else to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I do like this game. I know I might come off a bit harsh on its story, but I do enjoy it. I just think I like this game for different reasons than I like Fallen Order, and I would probably held a blaster to my head, I'd probably tell you like, yeah, I think Fallen Order is the better game, but I do think there's some stuff that they do pretty well here. My main gripes is, one, I do think that this game sometimes get a bit big for more than its own good, honestly. I think that's where you can trace a lot of these like technical issues, is like Kobo and all that, is that they thought like we need to go bigger, not necessarily smarter, and as a result it resulted in a more unstable game. Granted, I'm pretty sure they'll get it up to a more stable position, but I also think like some of the side content is really cool, some of it is like, and admittedly this is a personal thing, I could do without like the Scuba Steve stories. Could care less. The Holo Tactics game, whatever.
I love that.
I like the Holo Tactics.
The gardening mini game especially could go to hell. Like, I really don't give a shit. I did go and talk with the lady. She seems nice. I don't care. It's just the best way to sum it up, because you see this a lot with games. Like, I think another example was kind of my feelings on like Ragnarok 2 is sometimes they go bigger, not necessarily smarter. It's like, yeah, you got all this content, but as a result, you've lost what kind of made the first game special in my eyes, which was it was tight, it was focused. I feel like this game is bigger, but it also, in a sense, kind of feels a bit more bloated. Even the story does a lot too. One of the parts I really didn't like was the Jedi sequence when you go back there the second time and it's the typical video game. It's like, the analyst dude needs to look at the artifact. While you're doing that, go take care of this other side thing. Cal goes to rescue this guy and feels bad for whatever reason that he gets crushed.
I think his Cal's just a nice person. He doesn't like watching people die.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I just don't care. And also, like, but no, the bigger issue I had is like that part went really heavy on the platforming sequences, and I really think the platforming is not like all that super tight in my opinion. I still feel like a little bit of floatiness with it. The air dash helps, but doesn't entirely solve my problem with it. And then they proposed this big ass Metal Gear Rising-esque Empire robot that you fight, and all you do is just warp around him and basically watch a cutscene. Like that's what you do with it, and it's like so fucking lame to me. That part, that Jedi part really felt like the part where they were stretching the most for content. The technical issues, I will say that like on my system, it's like I played on the Series X. I mostly played on performance. I tried to play it on quality mode just so it could stay at ideally be like, well, maybe I can make it look good and it will stay at 30 FPS more consistently. That was definitely not the case when I tried it. And it is one of those things where it has scaling resolution. So if you don't know what, like, I'm not going to explain resolution. Listen, scaling resolution, it's switching between different things. And just coming off of Jedi Fallen Order, there was part where the resolution of Survivor looked worse than Fallen Order. And I know what it looks like because I just got done playing that game. So, and editing a video on it. So I know which one looks worse. And it was definitely Survivor in parts. I would be a lot more positive on this game if it came out more polished, but also like Survivor isn't the only one that's shitting the bed when it comes to this stuff. We're talking about Redfall also coming out not too long ago. Another game that, granted, it might still be a shit game even without like all the technical issues, but it's yet another game that is coming out with all kinds of mess of bugs. And then something I just remembered also, not that long ago also, The Last of Us Part 1 remake came out on PC, also a shit port. These games are being asked for us for $70 a pop now, $70 to $80. And they're coming out in busted ass states lately. And I think I'm just fucking tired of it. And unfortunately, Jedi Survivor is the whipping boy for me. But it really kind of goes with all this stuff is I feel like we need to be a bit more harsher on this about our purchasing decisions because it's like it keeps happening and they're just upping the price on this kind of stuff now. I want to see things come out in stable conditions. Survivor was already delayed a couple times as is for quote unquote polish. The version we got on launch day was the quote unquote polished version. If that was the case, I don't even want to think about what they were originally planning to release. This game should have been in the oven for at least another 3 or so months. And that's just kind of thing with it. I like Survivor a lot, but I can't ignore that, like, on top of some of the typical sequel issues of, like, just going bigger but not necessarily being smarter kind of, like, mentality, but also just the technical aspects is what really drags it down for me. But I do believe that this will be a fun, must-play Star Wars game by the end of the year. I do have faith in Respawn that they'll at least stick with their guns and try to fix this game up.
All right. Well, a lot of things, but we've been talking for a while. I think that is about everything with Jedi Survivor. Like I said, it's a good game, but the biggest kind of like red flag is the technical issues, and it is definitely like the thing that's frustrating, especially since Fallen Order also had the same problem. So the fact that it's kind of this continuing trend is really frustrating.
If you go back and listen to our original podcast, like that was our biggest issue. It's like, one of
that was really our only issue with it. Like, obviously, like, wanted more ponchos and like more expanded stuff, which they did. But yeah, the big one, and it's the same thing with this, is the technical issues. We want it to run good.
And it's just like, oh, you didn't learn anything. Why? In fact, it came out worse.
Yeah, but that's everything with Jedi Survivor. You know, we'd like to hear your comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, let us know your opinion in the comments below. But that is everything. And as we finish all our podcasts, let's talk about our fresh picks of the week. This is where we talk about what we've already been listening to, watching, or playing in the time in between podcasts. So I will, I don't always go first on these, but I will go first this time and talk about a little movie. It came out in theaters a while ago, but I ended up missing it, and it recently came to Netflix. And I watched a movie called A Man Named Otto. And it's rare for me to cry at any kind of media. Very often I have not. This movie made me cry. And I know it didn't resonate with everyone, but for whatever reason, this very happy, sad story about a man at the end of his life is so emotional and like really well acted. I don't know what it was about the characters. Maybe it's because it's Tom Hanks. Maybe it was just.
I was about to say that. I think it's because it's Tom Hanks.
I mean, it might just be because Tom Hanks, but like, God, there's just something about this. Like by the end of it, the ending, I was just like actually tearing up, and I was like, "Good Lord, I have not." And I'm watching this. I'm not watching this in a big theater with like a lot of people. I'm watching this at home, laying on my couch on my laptop. I didn't even put it on my like big TV. It's just like, gosh, something about like the simple, very like human story really got to me. And that's really all I want to talk about it. You know, it's incredibly well acted by everyone. The one annoying part is that there's someone who's like, "Hi, I'm a social media journalist," and I'm like, "Oh God, I have an issue with any time they portray media or journalists in movies because they always. This one's not as bad, but they always roll them as idiots or complete psychopaths and monsters. That's why I hate the movie Night Runner. But despite that, I thought this movie was great. It's on Netflix, as I said earlier, so I think it's definitely worth your time. You know, grab a box of tissues and enjoy a night.
It kind of, if you're looking for something similar, Drew, I don't think it's the exact same thing, but the way that I talk with my dad about this film, and like he kind of knows like what I like and stuff like that, and we've had chats about it. If you like the film, I think one movie you should really check out is Nobody's Fool. Very kind of similar premise, kind of like an older, more prickly kind of character. In this case, Nobody's Fool, he was played by Paul Newman. Actually, like one of his last roles that he ever did. So I really think you should give it a shot. It's a very funny but also very heartfelt film, and I think it's going to hit a lot on like it's going to hit a lot of like the similar like themes that you saw in the Man Called Otto. I think that's one of the reasons I do want to check it out. So when I talk with like my dad, he kind of reminded me of like that film, and I remember watching that as a kid. It is a rated R film, so there's typical rated R stuff, but it's good. It was. And also, Drew, you might be surprised. There's a lot of like actors you'll recognize in it too. It came out in the '90s, so it's got like Bruce Willis. It's also got like Philip Seymour Hoffman. A lot of really good actors in it. It's a very solid film.
All right. Wow. Definitely a little extra bonus one. But Seth, I imagine that's not your actual fresh pick. What is your?
No.
What is your real fresh pick of the week?
Yeah, that's a good point. I need to come up with one of those.
Did you not have one? Did you forget it?
No, I have one.
Okay.
I got one. I have been playing a game called Thief. In particular, it's called Thief: The Dark Project, or Thief Gold is like the enhanced version of it. This game came out in like '98, so it's older than Drew.
Ouch!
It is
by a year.
Yeah. It is a. So Thief is a like OG like kind of stealth, like 3D stealth game where it is all from the first person perspective. This game holds up very well even now because of like its art design, because it is the best way I can describe it is industrial punk. It has this gothic setting where imagine if like we discovered electricity and the industrial age didn't happen in the 1800s. It happened during the Dark Ages, like when we had like kingdoms and knights and fucking shit like that. So you obviously play as, hence the name Thief, you play as Garrett as he explores the city, trying to basically steal things from like these opulent mansions and stuff like that, which is like it's being patrolled by these like old ass like guards armed with crossbows and bows and swords and stuff like that. But they also have rudimentary security cameras. It's a trip. Like it's really weird to see like modern type technology being paired with like older style. So it has a visual style of its own that's like super fantastic. It's super immersive into that world. The best way I could describe playing and like getting in that world, it's like reading a really good book that has like a lot to flesh out, like all of its different pieces of like the world, like different factions and like the city's layout and all that. What really gets me though, and I think it's the thing Drew will appreciate the most, is Garrett. By the way, side note about Garrett, the same voice actor of Garrett here would go on to voice Corvo in Dishonored 2. Because the Dishonored games are actually inspired by Thief. So that's a really neat thing. But also, you're kind of wondering, why is Garrett delving into haunted tombs? He's going to these high-tech security mansions and all this stuff, trying to steal money because he's not a good fighter. He has to sneak. He has to avoid the guards. Why is he doing all this? There is a cutscene where he basically explains, I'm more scared of my landlord than the city watch. He is plundering tombs to pay rent.
Bro, rent was killing him back then too.
Give me rent.
Bro.
It's so fucking...
The housing market was that bad back then too? It's never changed.
It never gets better.
Bro.
Shit.
Alright, well I better learn how to fucking like scale rooftops and break into people's shit, man. My rent's going up.
It just cracks me up that like Garrett like steals like it's the horn of like Magnadur or some shit and it controls like monsters and I'm gonna sell.
And he's like, this'll get me 2 months.
My favorite line always is just like, I'm more scared of my landlord than the city watch. It's just like that fucking gets me.
It's
a great game.
Fantastic.
A bit of a warning though. It's only on PC. A bit of a warning though. This is an old game. This was not meant to run on modern systems. So if you do buy it as is off of Steam, it's going to break. It will not work. Thankfully, there are like tutorials and basically a community-made mod called T-Fix that's for free that you could download and install that will make it work and it will make it look better too. So I highly recommend that. Or you could just buy the GOG version. It already comes with all that shit automatically loaded up with it.
All right. Oh, Thief. Interesting. All right, Randy, take us home. What's the fresh pick of the week?
All right, the fresh pick of the week for me is I've already had them be a fresh pick before, but it's the band Sleep Token. They just put out an album this past Friday, and they've already, when I was last talking about them being my fresh pick, they already had a couple songs out. For example, The Summoning. I guarantee if you go listen to it, you'll be like, oh, I've heard that on TikTok. But going through down their line of songs, I really enjoy what they're doing in regards to metal. It feels very different. So like when I say metal, everyone's just like, oh God, it must just be all screamo all the time.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with screamo.
There ain't nothing wrong with it. They have one song like that, but the rest of their songs are very different. You'll have parts where it is like that, but then I'll just continue to boast about The Summoning just because it's their most popular song by a huge landslide. But like it has moments like that, some heavy drums and stuff like that, but then you get about like halfway through and there's this cool like groovy funk breakdown. And it's just like, what is happening? But like in the coolest way possible. But the album that just came out is Take Me Back to Eden. And like I said, some of the songs that are on there are The Summoning. Granite is another one of my favorites that's on there. In regards to new songs that came out when this album was released, there's a song called, obviously the title track, Take Me Back to Eden. That's really good. Another one is Ascensionism, and that's fantastic as well. I keep pitching to Drew that we should do a podcast on them.
We will.
And we will eventually, but like I said, this album just came out. I need more time to digest it. And I mean, we have other things slated as well. So, but yeah, go check them out. Their new album just came out. It's called "Take Me Back to Eden," and the band is called Sleep Token.
No, that will be a. I promise Randy and the viewers that yes, that will be a future one. It won't be next week, but in the future, yes, we will talk about the band in a full in-depth podcast. Because, like I said, I want to do more music episodes, and they're a good band to do that on.
Yeah. Also, if you don't like screamo, you need to get over yourself. Like, just honestly, just like, come on, man, just embrace it. Enjoy it.
Don't be a coward.
Don't be a bit.
Or that. Don't be that either.
To quote Jack, "Shit, you sound like a pussy."
And that's a good note to end it off on. I want to thank Randy for joining us, talking about Jedi Survivor.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep. And Seth, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your opinions.
It's been good.
All right. And I want to thank, as always, everyone for listening or watching if this is on YouTube. This is definitely a long one. We are past the 2:30 mark, so this might be a record. Probably not. But thank you for watching. We all appreciate you. Go watch our shorts and our review, and stay safe out there. Bye.